Hello, everybody, and welcome to Movie Changeup, the Impossible Movie Remake Show. My name is Johnny Doop, and we are excited to have you this week. This is the show, if you are not familiar, that we reboot and pitch new versions of movies that we love and movies that we love to hate. We got some exciting ones this week. We are doing what we call failed franchises, and we have some exciting possibilities for this. Before we get started, please like and subscribe on YouTube, and also give us a 5-star rating and review on any of the podcast apps that we're on, which is pretty much everything. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever other ones I'm not thinking of, but I don't think we're on Stitcher because fuck Stitcher. So yeah, that's it. We're ready to get started. So just a kind of an intro to today. We are switching things up a little for April. So Tristan chose the rule pairings for Bobby's movies, and I chose the rule pairings for Joe's movies. Normally, the contestants would have 7 rules and 7 movies, and they would have to pair those together and pitch the everything themselves. But we kind of painted them into a corner on these today, but tried to give them some room to work with. So before we introduce our competitors, I'd like to introduce my fellow co-host today. Tristan, how are you today?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm excited. Like you mentioned, we picked the rules this week, so that's something different. I'm really excited to see what uh, they did with our rules because it's kind of like our combined thoughts. It's what I would match because I would say that what I did for mine, I don't know about you, but my philosophy was what I matched for Bobby was what I would have matched for myself. So I'm curious to see how that works. I didn't throw in some curveball or something that I would try to sabotage him with. I tried to be objective and good now. When I'm competing, maybe not, but when I'm judging, I try to be.
Exactly. I tried to do the same for Joe, and I'm interested to see this week what we might have matched on. So, Bobby, after Tristan says he was trying to be objective and pick the best rules, do you agree? Do you think he gave you a lot of room to work with and pick the best rules for each movie?
Yeah, I mean, I think he did a good job. There's only one that is, on first glance, was like, oh, I don't know how that's going to work. And he even said it in his rule picking picks. He's like, sorry for this one, but I think I came up with something that I would like for it, that I'd like to see. So I didn't really have any complaints about it.
I'm curious because I had a very specific like one direction where I was like, maybe I would go this direction if I had
I,
to use this rule,
you
but
know,
I'm curious
I
what you
was
did.
I was talking to Joe before this. I went more with a concept-based pitches this time instead of a long drawn-out plot. So I'm going to see how that kind of works out for me.
I like that's what I've kind of been shifting towards for the most part. Or like if I really want to set the tone for it, basically just pitching like the opening and then kind of here's the rest. So
Hmm.
um, same question to you, Joe. Do you think I did a good job? Did I set you up for success today?
Yeah, no. There was one that was very challenging for me to do, and I wasn't quite sure how I was going to do it, but I think I tackled it pretty well. But other than that, yeah, I think it was pretty good rule pairings. Nothing too crazy, nothing too difficult that I had to overcome.
Yeah. I think every week, with especially because we have to use one rule per movie, you always kind of get into okay, this is the hardest pitch and this is the hardest rule, and usually I just put those together and try to do something interesting with it. So I feel like for Joe, I was like, here's 6 ones I'm confident in, and here's one that good luck, like have fun. And I feel like Tristan might have done the same for Bobby, as he said. So, all right. So before our contestants fight, I'll go over what 7 movies we're doing today, and then Tristan will read the rules. So we have, first of all, Eragon from 2006. We have Gem and the Hom- Gem, Gem and the Holograms from 2015. We have Saban's Power Rangers from 2017. The Lone Ranger from 2013. The classic Matthew McConaughey vehicle Sahara from 2005 that I don't know if any of us have seen. The Mummy from 2017. Now, there's been a million mummies, but this is the failed MonsterVerse version with Tom Cruise. And then we have John Carter from 2012. So those are our 7 movies. Tristan, what are the rules for this episode?
So like Johnny said, they have to match these rules with those movies, and our 7 rules for the 7 movies are: one must feature a kaiju in celebration of Godzilla vs. Kong coming out and being amazing. Another kind of monster, one must be directed by Rob Zombie. celebration of the upcoming Oscars we did, one must use only the nominees of the 93rd Academy Awards as the upcoming Academy Awards at the end of the month this April. One must cross over with another franchise. One must be a 4-hour epic. I'm interested to see how people use that one. One must feature time travel, another ridiculous one. And probably the most ridiculous one, a combination of me and Johnny both not reading our text well. One must feature only Star Wars actors who have also worked with Kevin Bacon. So these are people
I
who
forgot about that
Yeah.
when you started to read it, and I laughed.
in the Star Wars
Yeah.
franchise who have
Screw that
also in
rule.
other things worked with Kevin Bacon. If you guys have done the degrees of Kevin Bacon, follow that train, but also degrees of Star Wars. I'm sure there's like 3 people or something,
It's been so long since you gave us that list that I forgot to shit on you for that rule, because that is terrible.
That's the greatest rule
to
that's
go
ever
through
been in
that.
the history
It's
of this
funny.
show.
That rule
It's
sucks,
funny,
but
but yeah, but to go through and actually pick them out and cast a movie, especially, yeah, we'll see when we get
I
there.
have a
But
feeling you two will have similar casts when whatever movies
Probably.
those were paired with. So before the game, we did a quick little round of movie trivia, and Joe nearly edged out Bobby. So Joe, where are we starting, and who is starting?
all right, just to get this movie out of the fucking way, because I said in the group chat that I took a big swing on one of the movies, and this is that
Oh,
movie.
yeah?
So let's do Sahara from 2005, and I'll go first.
All right, starting with Sahara. Interesting. Maybe not the direction I thought we'd go with right off the bat, but all right. So Sahara from 2005 got a 38% on Rotten Tomatoes. It was directed by Breck Eisner, who also is famous for doing The Last Witch Hunter, interestingly enough. But Sahara was his first big movie. It is about a seasoned adventurer, Dirk Pitt. That's a great name. Played by Matthew McConaughey, sets out for the African desert with his sarcastic companion, Steve Zahn, in search of a ship rumored to have vanished long ago. The main draw being the treasure supposedly hidden within the lost vessel. When the daring duo come across a beautiful scientist played by Penelope Cruz, who is juggling an escape from a warlord and a mission to stop the spread of a powerful plague, their desert expedition begins to heat up. That is the description. Sounds pretty crazy. Joe, what do you got for us?
All right, so I did something very different with this movie. So basically, I went and I looked up the book because this movie is based on a book from 1992. And the book sounds very 1990s and very much of its time. It's basically a mix of like Indiana Jones meets National Treasure meets Da Vinci Code. And considering it probably helped inspire the last two, which are far more famous, I felt it was nearly impossible to make an adaptation of the book without it feeling like you've seen it before. However, there is an aspect of the book that I found interesting because Johnny talked about in the description that they find this ship. Well, on the ship is this massive treasure, and part of what got the ship into like the fictional history of this book is that Abraham Lincoln was kidnapped and put on this ship, and that's the aspect of this movie that I actually found interesting and could make a good movie. So that's what I focused on, is the kidnapping of Abraham Lincoln. So the movie opens with Jefferson Davis and Robert E. Lee seeing defeat on the horizon, trying to figure out how they can turn the tide of the war quickly. They come up with a plan they have called Sahara to kidnap Abraham Lincoln to force the Union to negotiate. Later, Abraham Lincoln is in the White House war room working with the telegraph operators commanding the war. He leaves the White House via stagecoach, where he is abducted by a group of Confederates in Union uniforms. United States Secretary of War Edwin Stanton, fearing public outrage and lack of faith in the Union, decides to stage Lincoln's assassination, and even hiring well-known actor John Wilkes Booth to play the part of the assassin. Meanwhile, when Jefferson Davis and Lee learn that the Union will not negotiate, they have Lincoln taken aboard the CSS Texas. A determined Lincoln must make his way through the members of the Confederate Navy aboard the CSS Texas and return to the U.S. in a tone similar to that of like a Die Hard or Air Force One, starring real-life President Abraham Lincoln. However, he has trouble navigating the ship alone, and after a major storm finds himself inside the banks of the Niger River in West Africa, where before he dies on the ship, he hears that the Union has won the war. And so my director, I've decided to go with this, is Peter Berg. And to get to my rule, the rule I had to use for this is I have to cast Star Wars actors who worked with Kevin Bacon. So my Abraham Lincoln is going to be played by Joel Edgerton. My Jefferson Davis is going to be played by Clint Howard. My Robert E. Lee is going to be played by Jim Cummings, who is a voice in the Star Wars animated shows, and Clint Howard had a very small cameo role in Solo. My Edwin Stanton is going to be played by Greg Grunberg, who he was kind of a background character in the sequel trilogy. And then my John Wilkes Booth is going to be played by Elijah Wood, who was a voice in one of the Star Wars animated shows. And that's my pitch, because I didn't want to adapt the book. But it was still,
right.
I'll say it was still connected to the book, and it gives a backstory to the book, so book readers would still be interested in it.
Okay. All right. Very interesting direction to go. A lot different than the description of the real movie that came out. Bobby,
Yeah, I was like, did I ever watch the wrong movie?
Yeah. Right. So Tristan, just to get this out of the way, Tristan gave me the same rule, so I had to cast Star Wars actors who had to work with Kevin Bacon. So I did not do with the concept as far as Abraham Lincoln and all that. So I'll give you my cast and kind of who they play. So my lead, kind of like Joe, is Joel Edgerton, and he's playing Dirk Pitt. Ming-Na Wen, who worked with on The Darkness with Kevin Bacon and is on Mandalorian, is going to be Zhao, the WHO, the World Health Organization, or whatever. They're the doctor they rescue. Woody Harrelson, who is in an All in the Family special with Kevin Bacon in 2019, is going to be Al Giardino. Rose Byrne from X-Men First Class is going to be Judy Gunn instead of Rudy Gunn from the original. Clint Howard from Apollo 13 and Solo is going to play. He's just kind of a bad guy businessman. I didn't really give him a name, but he kind of can fit in as like a henchman type character. And then also Greg Grunberg is also going to be in my movie again, who's another doctor. Didn't really give them a name, but kind of they're good side characters. Good kind of give them a little funny thing to do or something, and that's their character. But what I basically found is that the plot of the movie, I changed like a little bit of kind of to focus it a little bit, but it's more the execution, and they tried to make it just like a fun like vehicle for Matthew McConaughey, and it really wasn't executed very well. But someone who I would trust to work in an Indiana Jones type setting, and someone who is actually set to direct the next one that I don't know if will ever actually happen, is James Mangold. So that's who I have as my director. I think he can work in this adventure type setting. And he can work well in kind of a Western-y kind of setting, as we've seen with like 3:10 to Yuma and that. So I didn't really change too much of the plot, except that I want it to focus on that this business they don't have the disease like spreading, and they didn't start all that yet. What they are looking for to focus it, so the good guys and bad guys are both looking for the same thing at the same time, is that it's low. Everyone knows that what they're looking for is located on the sunken ship. So it kind of gives a focus, kind of more like the Indiana Jones type things, where you have the good team and bad team looking for something on this ship, one to stop it from being spread, and one to use it for their business and for the bad, for their plot. So I didn't really change much of it other than just kind of focusing it and giving it the tone more of Indiana Jones, and something that I think I would want to see James Mangold see, because I don't really trust that Indiana Jones 5 is actually going to happen. Give Joel Edgerton a fun lead role that I think he could really shine in. And then I think he would play well off of Ming-Na Wen and Woody Harrelson, who are kind of the main other people in that movie. So that's more what I did, just kind of focused it instead of having this big sprawling thing, just more of good guys go here, bad guys go here, figuring out the plot along the way of why, they want to get there and all that, kind of more of Indiana Jones style.
All right. So with both pitches having been read, Tristan, do you have questions for either of the competitors?
I have to say I like Bobby's rule choice more. I think it matched better.
I think those are pretty even, actually.
Yeah. For Joe, I do have a question. The theme of the whole episode is that they're failed franchises, so I want you to kind of justify like doing this deep cut spin-off of a franchise that failed that nobody even knows. Like you justified it by saying like, oh, it connects to this thing from the book, but like
Because I don't think you need the book or the movie for my movie to work. I think my movie is standalone on itself. It does. You don't necessarily need to read the book or know the book or even know that the book or movie exists for my movie to be fine, because it's like a, I don't want to say like prequel, but it is like before the movie takes place.
Okay. Um, all right. So I have a couple questions. Quick one for Joe. Just because I like a title of a movie kind of making sense. Why would your movie be called Sahara?
Because mine is because they're planning to take Abraham Lincoln to Sahara, and that's the name of their operation. That's the name of Jefferson Davis and Robert E. Lee's operation, is Sahara.
Okay, so at least there's a connection to that in there. That's all I needed there. Bobby, why again is because in the original, Dirk Pitt is just a treasure hunter, and that's the reason they're going for the boat, and then they get mixed up in this villain plot.
Yeah.
Who is he in your movie to like? He obviously is looking for the same thing. So who exactly? What does he do? Like, why is he on this adventure?
So it's the same thing. He's a treasure hunter, and he ends up he gets mixed up with the doctors who he sees in a bad situation with the villains, and he saves them from them and realizes they're both going to, and that kind of mixes up in the plot. So they explain to him that these guys are also looking for the same ship and for this reason. And it kind of changes his reasoning to get there. Like at first he just thinks it's the sunken treasure, and then realizes there's something more dangerous that he needs to like prevent them from getting.
Okay, and then he can help lead the doctors or the
because he's done the research and he knows how to get there, where it is, so he becomes the lead, and they are more informing him of what's there along the way.
Okay, all right, I get that. I like that. All right. With that being said, I'll say since Joe pitched first and Bobby just spoke, I'll go. Joe, why is your movie stronger than Bobby's? We'll give you like five or so minutes on this.
I think my movie's stronger just because they've tried. Maybe the tone wasn't fully right, but they've tried Bobby's movie before, and it just it didn't work. I feel like these adventure movies, like we've seen it done with other franchises that are more popular, and I feel like if you try this again, it's just gonna get lost in the shuffle again. I don't know how great it can be if it can supersede the other movies in its genre, where mine is just a fun action movie. Because like Abraham Lincoln, historically it makes sense for him. He's in the Wrestling Hall of Fame. He's been in 300 wrestling matches in his life and supposedly only lost one. I feel like you could make an interesting story for that and keep it like somewhat grounded and not have it be too crazy and too over the top, and tell an interesting, compelling story through that. And people like, and I was just to add one more thing, people like, alternate history and alternate takes, and I feel like that goes into that.
Yeah, I mean, I get yours. You're playing more into like, it's like conspiracy theory stuff, but that, I feel like that plays itself out, and some people, especially with using Abraham Lincoln specifically, it's been played out a lot, especially with like Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, where people see that and might associate it with that style of movie, which doesn't sound like the one that you're really making.
But that goes away as soon as they watch the trailer and they see it's more like a ground. Like that's why I picked Peter Berg, who's done movies like Lone Survivor and Patriot Day and more grounded movies like that, where they see the trailer and I think they're gonna get the movie and see that it's not Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter.
Yeah, but I find it's more interesting if you either go two ways with historical things like that, where it's either more over the top or it is straight historical. Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter just didn't really execute very well. But saying that it's just more of a fun action movie with him, I don't think takes it far enough to justify using Abraham Lincoln. But with mine, I would say it's more, as far as why mine's better and why it would work in adventure. One, I trust James Mangold. He, in this style of movie, I think would excel and get the tone that people would like. And as far as adventure movies not working, they have worked. It's just been in different settings recently. Like Guardians of the Galaxy is a treasure hunter going to open this thing, and then it becomes a team sci-fi Marvel movie. And like you can just change, little things. Sahara, if you you don't need to know the originals to go see this. Oh, it's an adventure. It's like Indiana Jones. It's like these movies. And you'll get the concept. If it's fun, and if it looks like a fun adventure with a team that looks like they'll interact well together and have good dialogue, and then you have more of a simplified plot that isn't as convoluted as the first one, which is one of the reasons that it didn't succeed, is that it's very convoluted, and it kind of takes away from the characters and from just like the vehicle it was supposed to be, kind of for Matthew McConaughey. Overall, I just think it's, again, yours sounds a little bit too watered down for the concept you're going for. I would rather have you go all out, balls to the wall with the concept, rather than kind of play it back to a little bit more grounded, but it's also not the real history. So I think it's just kind of in a weird middle ground to me.
But I also think with your movie, like you said, it is an adventure movie, and we do have better adventure movies, and I don't know what about your movie makes it different or better, especially because you're taking a lot of the stuff out of the book. I mean, I know I'm taking mine out more, but I'm completely just pivoting. You're telling the same story, and you're going to take out a lot of stuff. And what I've noticed a lot with like book adaptations is if the book fans don't like it, then no one else really goes to see it. And I feel like with your movie, people might not. They'll just be like, "Oh, it's not what I want to see. It's not the Sahara." Where at least with my movie, they're like, "Oh, it's kind of like a prequel to the book I read."
I think what mine does is really, because sometimes what people get into problems with when they do adapt books is they try to fit everything in. So what I did is strip away what would work in a book that's where you can read it longer, over a longer period of time, and focus it so that you can tell a more streamlined, like 2 hour movie, 2 hour 15, whatever it is, like a shorter streamlined story that doesn't feel rushed and it doesn't feel all over the place. And you have two sides that you can focus on. You can focus on the villains, really get to know what they're doing and their plan, focus on the heroes, get to know their characters along the way. You still have him as a treasure hunter. It's still it's still like the basic concept, and you know that it is Dirk Pitt. It is this character. It's not Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah,
which
people
completely
love
takes it
Abraham
away.
Lincoln.
So
no one cares about Dirk Pitt.
Here's my question, because I would hate to go through this argument of you guys having to research this rule without getting into the casting. You guys obviously have similar things. I think the most important for two roles for these type of movies that both of you pitched are the hero, which both of you have Joel Edgerton, so I think that one kind of edges each other out. Like, I think those are pretty even. But I need both of you to sell me real quick on why is your villain choice better, because the reason that I'm going to see this action movie is to see the hero, and I'm going to see an interesting villain, and I feel like if you fail on the villain role, this whole movie fails. So I want to hear from both of you, and I'll start with Bobby. Who even is your main villain, and why am I sold on?
So what I did, and I don't know if I even said it when I was going through the cast, but my main hero group is the Joel Edgerton, Ming-Na Wen, Rose Byrne, and Greg Grunberg, and then my villain is Woody Harrelson, and he is my businessman type character that is going through. And so I think he's just one. I'd like to see Woody Harrelson play a villain, because I think he can play it just enough over the top that is awesome, and not to the level of what he tried to do in like the post-credit scene in Carnage. But Woody Harrelson can be amazing. He's a great actor, and when you pair him with James Mangold, I think you get a great performance. So he's going to have a tinge of like Bondism villain things in him, where he has just the slight amount of crazy, but he still has this driving, and he's kind of still sinister. And I think Woody Harrelson could pull that off and be really compelling, so that you like each group. You like watching each group when they're on screen.
Okay. And Joe?
Yeah, I still I want to.
Yeah.
What was so my villain was? I mean, I didn't have quite a big name, but I went with kind of legendary character actor Clint Howard. Who's been around since he was a young child, and I think it'd be interesting to kind of give him more of the kind of spotlight as the main antagonist that he's going against in this movie.
And
what about Joe?
He's a henchman for Woody for me.
Because Clint Howard is in both your movies. I at least picture Joe. What describe to me? I really am curious to hear what Elijah Wood's role as John Wilkes Booth, because I feel like that would be the more memorable performance than anything Clint Howard would ever do. So sell me on that.
I mean, basically, it was more like intended to be a smaller role, because he's just hired as like the background guy to be, he's like this famous actor, and you could get, a little bit more comedic scenes out of him, because he's hired to basically assassinate fake Abraham Lincoln to cover up the fact that Abraham Lincoln was assassinated.
Okay. All right. I think I have my decision. Tristan, you start though. Maybe you can change my mind, because I'm not totally sold on either one. Which way were you leaning, and why?
I was kind of split on this. I'm not totally sold on either one. I'm leaning towards Bobby right now, but not by a lot. I think Joe took a big risk, but as Bobby was talking, I got on his side when he said, I wish that Joe went further to the risk. I wish he went bigger with the action and more kind of ridiculous with it. Not fully ridiculous like Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter level, but I wish Joe pushed it a little more because I think this would, people would go here either expecting Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter and being disappointed that it's not that, or they just won't go because they'll think, oh, this is Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. I think you had to just go a little more ridiculous with it. So I'm leaning a little bit towards Bobby on that, but I'm curious where you're going, Johnny.
Okay. So this was a movie I chose. So I'll make the final decision on that. Yeah, I kind of went back and forth because Joe's at first. I did get big Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter vibes, and that movie did not work at all for me because it took itself so seriously. Joe made his movie sound a little more fun, and I think it's more of the tone that I'd be looking for, except that I don't know if Peter Berg really fits in with that. I think that, he's done Patriots Day and all those Mark Wahlberg movies, and he's never really shown that he does anything that's not overly serious. Bobby sounds like maybe a run-of-the-mill adventure movie, but I do like his cast. I like Woody Harrelson as the villain, but I am worried he'd just be like he was in Solo, very forgettable, and have like a little standoff at the end with the Joel Edgerton, but you overall wouldn't remember. But I think because of the director choice with Mangold, I'd like to see Woody Harrelson work with him, and I do think that kind of is what it comes down to. Overall, I get maybe an overly serious vibe out of Joe's movie, and I get maybe more of a fun adventure out of Bobby's, and I trust Mangold to do a movie that sounds more watchable. And when it came down to it, I would rather see Joel Edgerton work with James Mangold than I would rather see him be Abraham Lincoln in a Peter Berg movie. So I'm going to go with Bobby on this, but ever so slightly. So Bobby edges out Joe on the first movie, but Joe took a risk and he almost got it. I think I would rather, like, some people are at least aware of the movie Sahara. Bobby sounded more like Sahara than Joe's, but Joe put in the research to do something a little wild and wacky, and I think
it was a little bit more wild and wacky, a little bit more ridiculous. That would have been in
a little bit more. I think, Joe, if you went with maybe a director that has shown that he can do a little bit more wild and wacky and something a little more fun, I would have been more sold on it.
So how would you have felt if I had went with Catherine Bigelow and kind of pitched more of like a Point Break tone? Because that was like who I originally had. But I was just like,
like that.
That's why I didn't go with her.
Better on that, but I think just going with. Yeah. I know we've used him a ton in this, and maybe he's not exactly who I'm thinking of, but even like a James Gunn type, where I know that that Elijah Wood as John Wilkes Booth would be a memorable character with the right director, but I can't see that being a very memorable role in a Peter Berg movie.
Yeah. Like Zack Snyder or
yes.
I should have just done.
As you're young, I was like,
I already said Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter is basically a Zack Snyder movie.
I should have just done Quentin Tarantino and like rolled with the alternate history take.
That could have been something. I
didn't even think about that until right now.
I didn't think about that until you said it, but that would have been an interesting one to sell us on. All right, so Bobby, you won that point. So Joe,
we have live comments. I don't know if anyone's on the Twitch stream looking. I can say the live comments too. If you.
I have no idea. You say them.
So basically, Paul, 2020, whatever the fuck their name is. Sorry, Paul. Says seriously.
Welcome back, Paul.
Seriously, how many Star Wars actors worked with Kevin Bacon? You guys are cruel. Then they said, have you considered going head to head on the rules instead of the movies? And then Dune Slug commented as well. And then basically, so the next batch that we do, so next week is Johnny versus Tristan with me and Johnny judging it. It's the same way of like we paired up their movies, and then we're doing a Mount Rushmore, and then our theme is basically all the rules we've been avoiding this entire time because we're not sure what to do with that, and at that time it's going to be rule versus rule instead of movie versus movie.
Yeah, so we are doing that eventually. Like, was it 3 weeks away?
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that. We'll probably do because in between that we're going to do a Mount Rushmore comedy episode, so we're going to do that after. So 3 weeks sounds right. Tristan, I texted you just a reminder on who's making the decisions in some of these because it's been a little while since we have made these. Apologies for last week. We planned on doing this episode, everyone watching, but work schedules and power outages got in the way of
Yeah.
being able to do that. So we pushed it to today.
And then
So that's why we did not have an episode last week. But you guys can watch Tristan and Joe's reviews of Bucky and the Birdman, as I like to call it, which I think has been surprisingly pretty good for me, at least so far. But I got to check out your guys' reviews, see what you know, to kind of hear.
I gotta
how you guys
upload.
break it down.
I gotta upload the most recent one to YouTube. I keep forgetting.
I've really come around on it. I think it'd be fun to watch the reviews back, honestly, if I go back and watch the show again, because my opinion has changed a lot over the course of the episodes.
Yeah, definitely. Well, before
Definitely
we
more of
sidetrack
a
completely,
show to binge. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I've been
And then-
waiting until there's at least 2 episodes every time, so I don't watch it week to week. So, Joe, what are we doing next, and who's going first?
Lone Ranger. I'll go first, and then don't forget to update the scoreboard, Tristan.
Yes.
You're right.
All right. So, The Lone Ranger. That came out in 2013 with a 30% score on Rotten Tomatoes. The director for that was Gore Verbinski. And this is the description. In 1933, a boy discovers an ancient Native American in a sideshow carnival tent. The Indian is Tonto, played by Johnny Depp. Yep, that's right. The old companion of John Reed, Army Hammer, also problematic. A lawman more famously known as the Lone Ranger. With this opportunity to set the record straight about his and Reed's adventures, Tonto recalls the day in 1869 when he first encountered the man who would be his trusted friend, and tells of their teamwork bringing down Butch Cavendish, played by William Fichtner, and other Old West outlaws. Yeah, I forgot that's what this movie was. I saw it on TV once, and I was like, why is Johnny Depp in like a museum? Very strange overall, this movie. So I'm interested to see what you guys do with it, because it was a very famous TV show. So, Joe, you're going first. Sell us on your version of The Lone Ranger.
All right, so my director is going to be David Mackenzie, who directed Hell or High Water. My John Reed is going to be played by Wyatt Russell. My Tonto is going to be played by Gil Birmingham. My Lone Ranger is going to be played by Kevin Costner. And then my leader of the outlaw gang, who I didn't really give a name to because I didn't feel like making up a name, was Timothy Oliphant. So, in 2021, young struggling Texas Ranger John Reed and 5 other Rangers are ambushed by members of a cartel they were investigating. Instead of killing them and leaving evidence, the cartel kidnaps them and sends them back to various points in time. Because that's the rule I'm forced to use, is that this movie must include time travel. John, who blames himself for what happened, finds himself back in the Old West alone and out in the desert. He spends several days confused and just trying to survive when he sees a man on a horse running towards him. The man wears a black mask. He thinks it's a hallucination because there is no way it could be him. He's just a myth. The man introduces himself as the Lone Ranger. John has heard stories about the Lone Ranger since he was a kid, and those stories were why he became a ranger himself. But he didn't think they were real. The Lone Ranger offers his assistance and to take him into town. We find out that the Lone Ranger is off to find his oldest friend Tonto while being chased by a band of outlaws. Before they reach the town, the outlaws catch up to John and the Lone Ranger, and there's a shootout. Unfortunately, the Lone Ranger doesn't make it, and John is wounded badly. The outlaws remove the Lone Ranger's mask, but they realize they don't recognize him and have no idea who he is. The outlaws get back on their horses and ride away, leaving John for dead. John sees the Lone Ranger's mask blowing in the wind and puts it into his pocket before hurling himself over the Lone Ranger's horse, who carries him into town. Everyone in town is shocked by what they see. The horse eventually stops outside of a small house on the edge of town and neighs until an older Native American, Tonto, steps out. Between bouts of coughing up blood, John is able to tell Tonto what happened. However, he leaves out the part of time travel. Tonto nurses John back to health and tells him that those outlaws fear no man. John, who wants revenge, looks over at the mask on the table across the room and realizes if he puts on the mask, he will become more than a man. The rest of the movie is a revenge western where Tonto teaches John how to be the Lone Ranger, as John goes after the outlaws who left him for dead and killed the original Lone Ranger. And it's a story about a man who feels like a failure as a Texas Ranger who must become the Texas Ranger. And that's my pitch.
Joe, who plays your Tonto?
Gil Birmingham. He's like...
Okay, I thought so. Yeah.
Yeah, he's, what's his face? His partner in Hell or High Water.
Hell or High Water.
Yeah, Jeff Bridges' partner.
Yeah, Jeff Bridges' partner.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
He's in all his movies. All right, I like that. There's one change that I think could have put your movie a little over the top for me to really sell me on it, in terms of your acting choices. But also speaking of that had a lot of Falcon and the Winter Soldier vibes with a part of that.
Wyatt
So
Russell and
yeah,
yeah,
Wyatt Russell taking the mantle of
yep,
a famous hero.
Yeah.
yep.
Bobby, what do you got for us?
So I was given the rule of that this has to be a 4-hour epic. And so I chose a director for this movie that I think is one of the only ones that could pull off a 4-hour Lone Ranger movie that I would want to see, and that is Quentin Tarantino. So I'm bringing Quentin Tarantino in to do a 4-hour revenge western with the Lone Ranger. So like I said, it's a revenge western. My cast, I have Brad Pitt as John Reed, the Lone Ranger. I have Zahn McClarnon, who is in Longmire, the Fargo TV show, and he was in uh, Bone Tomahawk as my Tonto. My Butch Cavendish, who is like the famous villain in the Lone Ranger series, is going to be played by Kurt Russell. I have Tim Roth as one of his henchmen. I have Samuel L. Jackson as a sheriff that they run into that kind of directs them towards kind of what's going on. And then they run into a variety of Tarantino actors along the way, as is normal with his movies. So I like, Michael Madsen, Harvey Keitel just kind of pop in the towns as kind of guys that maybe say they saw something happen or whatever from this gang. But the beginning of my movie shows the origin of John Reed being the lone survivor of a group of Texas Rangers attacked by Butch Cavendish and his crew. And John being found by Tonto and being brought back to health, creating their lifelong partnership. This scene establishes Butch as the intimidating, charismatic villain, because that's Kurt Russell. Then we cut to now Lone Ranger and Tonto in their 50s, still protecting Texas, but have not been able to catch up to Butch. And they're kind of starting to think their time might be coming to an end. So we kind of have Lone Ranger at the end of his career with Tonto. We follow the Lone Ranger and Tonto taking out bandits, doing a variety of misdeeds. This kind of, at the 4-hour runtime, you need adventure. So we get them in the beginning kind of doing their thing. You get their backstory. Then you have them stopping a bank robbery, a kidnapping of a wealthy man's daughter, this establishing their relationship, getting their dialogue with Quentin Tarantino going. They run into Sam Jackson's sheriff character and says that he heard that a train is going to be hijacked in the coming days. And in order to get ahead of it, the Lone Ranger and Tonto board the train disguised, waiting for the ambush, instead of trying to catch up to the train, as a lot of Westerns do. When it happens, this leads to a big action scene that includes the Lone Ranger being like thrown off the train, borrowing someone else's horse, and Tonto helping him back on. You get some fun action. They save the train, but notice a brand on the bandits. They think back and realize they saw the same brand on a few of their other encounters. Getting a closer look, they recognize the symbol as Butch Cavendish's kind of gang, the sign of his gang. We get a scene with Butch as now that he is now established as part of the story. We can now cut back and forth to him, with him talking to his crew, revealing his plan to distract all of law enforcement and the Lone Ranger by pulling jobs all across different towns to spread them thin. So when they rob the biggest bank in Texas, making him the most powerful man in the state, there would only be a few men there to try to stop them. So this leads now to a big, Tarantino-esque shootout with two just Tonto and the Lone Ranger, and that's it, going up against an entire group gang of people led by Kurt Russell's character, and you get a big bloody ending to the movie with a shootout and Lone Ranger and Tonto making it out at the end.
All right, interesting. Okay, so Tristan, do you have any questions for these two after their pitches?
I'm a big fan of both of the pitches. I'm not gonna lie. They both they both had different rules. So I was like, wow, Joe used the rule really well, and I was like, well, he didn't pick the rule.
But I mean, it's still up to me to use it well and not bot. Like, you could very easily botch that rule choice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So yeah,
time travel in the Lone Ranger was risky one, but I knew Joe would use it right.
This was Tristan's apology to me. It was 4-hour Lone Ranger.
Yeah, when it came
up. I don't even think that one's that bad.
It wasn't terrible, but it was just funny that he put "I'm sorry" in it, and I was like, yeah, if it's a 4-hour Gore Verbinski Lone Ranger, that would be awful. But
yeah, I was nervous to see what you do with the 4-hour cut of Lone Ranger, the Snyder cut version. So I'm excited that we got a Tarantino cut of Lone Ranger. I'd like to see that too. So I'm a big fan of both of these. Honestly, just want to hear you guys argue it out, but I want to see what Johnny has questions too.
One, I had to ask Joe the same question, but Bobby, who was your Tonto?
Zahn McClarnon. If you look him up, you'll know his face. He's from Longmire. He was on Fargo, the TV show, and
he was
been in Bone
Okay.
Tomahawk. Yeah,
That's who I looked up Longmire, and then I had to like go through it, and I was like, wait, I forget who he said. So
I will
now
say
know
that
who
too.
you're
I would
talking
have cast
about.
as Tonto
Yeah.
too. I was like, I
This
like
guy.
that guy a lot.
He's a great actor.
I could buy him as Tonto for sure.
Mhm.
I like that. I also like Gil Birmingham. I thought, there are only so many directions you can go with Tonto.
Not Johnny Depp.
Or
Not
Army
Johnny
Hammer
Depp,
as your
definitely
lead.
Yeah, that's an interesting
Oh,
movie to look
God.
back on now.
My one question for Joe is this. Man, how could you miss? First of all, I don't give a shit about Kevin Costner.
I mean,
at
if
all.
it was just like a
Instead
small
of-
cameo
He's
opening.
a small role. But Joe, you really could have made this like a home run for me if you had also cast Kurt Russell in that role and made it like his great grandfather. I would have loved to see Wyatt Russell as and Kurt Russell working together for a little while. So that I thought was pretty obvious, like of a miss, but that's not really so much a question rather than pointing that out. But I do think like because at first when you said Kevin Costner, I was like, oh no. But then it was like, oh, he's a small role. He dies pretty quickly.
Yeah, he's like the original Lone Ranger, which I thought made sense for like a Western kind of thing.
Yeah, it makes sense. Like a throwback to like an old Western actor. So yeah, I don't really have a question. Maybe Joe. So obviously yours involves time travel and he goes back. Does your movie end up with him just staying back in the past and becoming the Lone Ranger?
Yeah, that's how my movie like ends. It's like he's just like accepted his fate. Like he's in the past now and he's now the new Lone Ranger.
All right, I like that. I like that you didn't have some bizarre plot of him trying to find a way to get back.
It's basically like he looks around and he's like, yeah, I'm just stuck here. Like it sucks, but I don't really have a way to get back. So
I like that. That's a new dynamic for a time travel movie I don't know if we've ever seen. So I like that a lot. So we'll start with Bobby. Why is your movie stronger than Joe's? We'll give you guys about 5 minutes on this argument, and I'm going to grab a drink.
So I think what it comes down to is we both said that ours are revenge westerns.
Yep.
Joe's, what he did, it has a very interesting opening with the time travel, but then from then on, I think I picked a better director for a revenge western because Hell or High Water, like that's a very good western movie, and it's a family oriented, them getting back at the bank and all that, but it's not necessarily like it's not a heavy action movie. It's not really been shown to. That's not the strength of that movie. It's the characters and like the dialogue and that. Tarantino, to me, can entertain you over a 4-hour span that mine would do with witty dialogue, great characters, and then when there's action, it's great action and it's over the top and it's Tarantino-esque in a western. And I think that would entertain you more than kind of a really interesting opening to then turn into more of a run-of-the-mill revenge western. So that's kind of what I'm getting with that.
And my defense for that is the one thing I didn't really get into my pitch that I was saving for my arguments is one of the best parts of Hell or High Water is like all of the side characters, whether it's like the waitress and like that Jeff Bridges has to pay off, or like the what don't you want waitress, or like the when they rob the bank, there's an old guy there when it opens and he like starts chasing after them and shooting. And so one of the things I wanted to do was like in this town kind of fill it with those type of characters and like those kind of small characters that are in there for like one scene or like half a scene or 2 scenes that can be those fun, interesting characters. And it's like you kind of understand and you can make you care about this town because you get a glimpse of various citizens in it. Like you could see like, oh, here's the bartender at the saloon, or here's maybe kind of the sheriff that's in over his head, and just all these small interesting characters. And I think that could be kind of where David Mackenzie's strength is, and that's why I picked him for my guy. And I feel like you're still underestimating him because the shootout at the end, it's very like tense, edge of your seat, and Hell or High Water where they're going against Chris Pine and his brother.
No, and it is, and the direction of that movie is very good, but really, I think the magic of Hell or High Water was really in the writing, with Sheridan writing that. And if you look at David Mackenzie's filmography, like Hell or High Water is like the major standout of his by a lot. So I don't know if that, like, just saying, oh, he did this Western really well, he can do this one. I think he needs a great script, and he needs something like that. I think the script is very smart in that movie, and the family oriented. That's what you follow really well, and he put it to the screen well, but I don't know if just his style alone is going to differentiate it from a lot of other revenge westerns or from anything like that. Whereas Tarantino doing a revenge western, we know that works and it's awesome. He's done it and it's been great. But he can pull off different, this would be his first forego into like a franchise, but it's a franchise that if he were to do it, this is the type of franchise he would do, where it's this old school serialized show that he loves referencing. And he could take this and do crazy things with it, because people right now don't care about the Lone Ranger being like, oh, it has to like stay true to like a PG-13 or being like this family friendly thing. He can go balls out, bonkers with it, and have a fun. And Tarantino, talk about character work. Everyone you meet in this movie is going to be interesting. That's what he does. That is his thing. If you talk about the side characters in Hell or High Water, that's what Tarantino does with all his movies. You love all the characters. I also think that Brad Pitt, just being the lead of his movies, it always seems to work, and he's always great. And I think he fits that Texas. He can pull off that Texas macho, old guy that's kind of maybe getting to the end of his career, but he wants to still do his job and protect what he can protect. And then you get a great actor like Zahn McClarnon, and I think they would play off each other really well. Gil Abraham, like, he was very good in it. When I picture Tonto, I don't really picture him as Tonto. That's more of a visual thing. I do picture more.
Well, mine
of
is more of
my
like
guy.
an older Tonto too, because it's he's had his run as Tonto with the
Right,
original, and now
which
he's
is
looking
interesting
older.
that you have so you have the younger Lone Ranger and older Tonto. I don't know. It's just the dynamics of yours. And then also just as far as entertainment value, I just think yours could fall into, other than the interesting opening with time travel, a more generic story from that point on, where mine would be Tarantino, which in this Western style would be a little bit more stylistic, a little bit more fun to watch in this genre. And then I think my actors, my leads, Brad Pitt, a little better as of now than Wyatt Russell, who is still coming up and learning and getting better and better. But I do like him in Falcon Winter Soldier, but he's a little unlikable, quite a bit unlikable.
But
in
he's
that,
like
in
aiming
that.
to be unlikable
So,
when you see him in other things.
He does it well.
When you
does
see
do it
him
well.
in other things where he's trying to be likable, like in his episode
Right.
of Black Mirror and stuff, he pulls it off. Like it's not like he's unlikable and trying to be likable. He's trying to be unlikable and is unlikable. So
But he's nowhere near the likableness of a Brad Pitt type. So that's where I'd get as far as that is that the leads are concerned. You just have a more established actor in mine in a Tarantino movie, where I know that he'll get that job done and do it well. And yours is like, I think he could, but it's not 100% slam dunk for sure, especially with the director being not a one-hit wonder, but he has the one movie that stands well above the rest of his work. It seems to me, it's like he's good.
I'll say this. I don't know if any of you guys have seen the movie Starred Up, which he did in 2013 with Jack O'Connell and the dude Ben Mendelsohn. That movie's fantastic. And he also has this adventure movie on Netflix that has been on my watch list with Chris Pine called like Outlaw King or something. So I do think he's Bobby's not giving him enough credit for his.
It's just more of the what I was getting at is I think the magic of Hell or High Water comes in the writing, and he did a really good job with it. I'm just comparing him to Tarantino as far as style in this Western. I just prefer a Tarantino style for a revenge Western than what David Mackenzie.
And my one knock, I mean, Tarantino's great, but my one knock against Tarantino directing this movie is we've seen him do multiple Westerns at this point, and it's like, how many times can he do a Western? And where it's like, oh, I saw you do that in this movie, or I saw you do that in this movie. Where I think one of the great things Tarantino has done is switch up the genres pretty much every time, and if he keeps going back to the Western genre, I feel like he's going to become more derivative of himself. And especially with a 4-hour movie, I feel like that could very easily happen, where it's just like, oh, this is just Django, but instead of a slave getting revenge, it's just like Brad Pitt's Lone Ranger character getting revenge.
Right, but I'd say as far as the knock on it being that Tarantino, it's been, I think if he were to do a franchise, it would be a Western type thing. Would be the franchise that he would go for.
He would
a
do Star Trek
serialized
if anything.
Western.
That's the one thing he's been pitching.
Well, that's the one that he's been
never done
circling, but I don't
sci-fi
think they'd ever let. I don't think they'd
No,
ever.
they're not
let
going to
him
let him,
do
but
that.
that's what he wants to do. I don't think
Yeah,
Tarantino. If
but he would
Tarantino's,
do this too.
I just don't know if I've ever seen him like have interest in.
Yeah, I'll say this. I have my decision made up, but Tristan has the final decision. So Tristan, either you have your mind made up or give them a guidance to like one last point you want them to make. But I have my decision made up, so your call.
Yeah, ultimately, just in that last minute or so, I did make my mind up. So I'm pretty decided right now. But I don't want to give, since I'm making the final decision, I don't want to play my hand too much before I hear your thoughts, Jenny.
Yeah, I'll say this. I was kind of waiting for Joe to make the point, but my feelings on it are Django Unchained is one of my favorite Tarantino movies. I like it more than most people. And then I was super disappointed in The Hateful Eight. And then after that, and I know Tristan likes that more than me, so I'm interested to see what he thinks of this. But I love, like Joe said, Tarantino visiting different genres with all of his movies. And I have no interest in him going back to making a Western, especially a 4-hour version of it, because Hateful Eight's problem was it was way too long because he wanted this play type movie with an intermission. And that movie would have been much stronger if you cut about 45 minutes or a half hour off of that movie. And I think expanding Django Unchained to 4 hours would make that movie much weaker. I think that tells a very strong story in like the 2.5 hours it tells it, and I don't need an hour and a half more in that world, and I definitely don't need 4 more hours of Tarantino doing a Western. So for me personally, I go with Joe because I do really like David Mackenzie as a director. He's done some interesting work. I don't know if anyone has seen Startup, but I recommend that. I watched that a long time ago when I saw Hell or High Water, and I got to give that one a revisit because I remember really, really enjoying that. And despite Joe not going with the Wyatt Russell, going back and visiting his great-grandfather, the Lone Ranger, Kurt Russell, I think would have made it like 100% win for me. I think this one pretty clear for me was Joe, mainly because it is a tough thing to sell a 4-hour Lone Ranger movie. If I'm going to go see the Lone Ranger, I'm never wasting my time seeing 4 hours version of it. I would rather go see like a 2-hour, 15-minute version that Joe pitched for me. So I think just mainly because the source material doesn't need the 4-hour version, I'd go with Joe.
Yeah. I tried to make it as interesting as possible for 4 hours.
Yeah. I do think though, like if you went with like, I don't like him, but if you went with a Zack Snyder, I could have been like, well, he's never done a Western. I know he can do 4 hours. I think he needs 4 hours like to make his movies. I don't think Tarantino. I think Tarantino is perfect at like 2.5 hours. Yeah. I think it gets.
But would I ever risk if it might have been your choice to ever pick Zack Snyder?
No, but if you did, Tristan would definitely have.
Yeah, I mean, all you gotta do is pick roll the dice, you know, and you never know who you land on. But I'm ultimately going down the same route that Johnny went down. But I think I was closer than him. You guys definitely were back and forth a lot from me on this. I wasn't going to hold it against you that Tarantino's done this multiple times until Joe brought it up. So I was curious if he was going to bring it up, and then he brought it up at the last second. So I was like, well, I guess.
Well, I was waiting for him to talk. It wasn't like last second. It was like he was talking for a while, and I'm like, well, I got this locked in the chamber, so. Just waiting for him to stop talking.
I was trying to let you not say that because I know that's like that would have been the big knock. So
I love Bobby's casting of Tonto, but I also love Wyatt Russell. If you've been watching our Falcon and Winter Soldier reviews, I've been really into his character on there, so I'm excited to see what he does next. I think Joe's just feels more of like an exciting, interesting movie. And I'm not gonna lie, if I walked into the theater and they were like, "Oh, it's an alternate universe. We've got these 2 Lone Ranger versions coming out on the same day. You can see one or the other." I'm probably going to go see the David Mackenzie one over the Tarantino one at this point because I just think it's a more interesting movie. So I'm going with Joe's.
Nice. Yeah, I wasn't sold on Wyatt Russell after Joe and I both watched the Nazi movie
Overlord.
He was in, I thought
Overlord,
which I thought was disappointing. I wasn't interested in it, but because of how much I hate him in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I know he's doing a good job.
He's really good.
Yeah, tell that to everyone on Twitter, though.
Yeah. I know. I cast him last time we fought as the.
I think he's a great actor, and I would have liked Joe just missed that opportunity to put him with Russell.
Like it was so close because Because originally I had Chris Pine as my. I had the same story, but I had Chris Pine as my lead, and then Wyatt Russell as my original. And then at some point, I think I switched it to Kevin Costner because I just felt like he did more westerns and it
You
was a
could
small
throw
role.
back to westerns.
And then,
Russell also
and
has
then I
one.
decided that Chris Pine was too old for the role I wanted him to be in, so I switched it to Wyatt Russell. So it was like very close to being Wyatt and Kurt Russell.
Very close. I figured I thought that's who you were gonna say, and then you went a different direction. And I was like,
Yeah, if you'd done
Joe
Wyatt
just
and Kurt
missed
Russell
it.
fighting side by side as two Lone Rangers, one from the past, one from the future, I would have been like, okay, Bobby, you don't even have to like read
Yeah,
it.
Bobby, don't even read it.
Yeah.
We're good.
All
But
right.
yeah,
Well,
so that ties it up at 1-1, and Bobby is choosing what movie we go with next.
all right. Well, I'm gonna go with Eragon, and I'll go first on this one.
Fuck. Don't forget to update the scoreboard either.
All right, so I'm excited because I know what rule I chose for Joe. I'm extremely excited to see how he used it. Eragon came out in 2006. It was a very popular book. Shout out to my friend in elementary school, Andy Baghdad. He was obsessed with this, and when it came out, I was like, I do not get it. It got a 16% on Rotten Tomatoes. The director is interesting because it's Stefan Fangmeyer. This is the only movie he's ever directed. He was a visual effects guy on Jurassic Park, and he's now like working on he was working on Game of Thrones, but he's one of the biggest visual effects guy in Hollywood, and this is the only movie he directed. So I found that interesting. So, Eragon, played by Ed Spielers, a poor farm boy, lives in Alagasia, a kingdom ruled by Galbatorix, played by John Malkovich, a powerful but evil monarch. One day, Eragon discovers a beautiful stone that he soon realizes is a dragon's egg. When the creature hatches, Eragon sets forth on a path that could restore the glory of his homeland's legendary dragon riders and perhaps overthrow Galbatorix. Played again by John Malkovich. This movie exists. So, Bobby, I'm sorry, who did you say is going first on this?
I'll go first.
Tristan, make
All
sure
right.
you give the point to the right person. I'm interested.
Yeah, it's 1-1. Very
Trying to
important.
make him run away with it, you know?
Yeah.
What's
Sabotaging
funny-
you, Joe.
What's funny so far is I had the deciding decision on the first movie, and I chose Bobby, and Tristan had the deciding thing on that movie, and he chose Joe, which are the opposites of the rules we won on. So we are unbiased. We're just looking for the best movie. So, Bobby, what do you got for Eragon?
All right. So my Eragon, I only cast two like actors in the movie because the rest is in the very beginning of mine. And you could put pretty much anyone in the roles, but my Eragon is going to be played by Jack Dylan Grazer from It and from Shazam, and my Saphira, the dragon, his dragon, is going to be voiced by Tilda Swinton because I think her voice would do well for this. The beginning of my movie shows, at least because to give people the background of who Eragon is, finding the dragon egg and bonding, raising the dragon, and establishing that Saphira speaks to him telepathically. You kind of get a little bit of the backstory of this whole beginning. And then one day, suddenly they hear a strange noise coming from the distance. Is that another dragon? Eragon says. Saphira says, that's no dragon. Oh, by the way, my director's Adam Wingard, if you can see where this is going. We then see a pterodactyl-type creature Godzilla fans would recognize as Rodan. We get a monster battle in the sky between Saphira and Rodan, with the monster crashing to the ground. And after the battle, Saphira wins, saying that she was able to communicate with the creature, and it was from a place called Kaiju, also known as Monster Island, which Godzilla fans would also recognize. They decide that if there are creatures like this out there, that they cannot be safe on their land. So they set out to go take out these creatures on Monster Island and investigate, see what's there. They venture to Monster Island, and we basically have a big monster fight, and with character moments in between, with them kind of growing and talking about what this place really means if it exists. You get the character interactions between Eragon and the dragon that kind of fills the time in between, and searching the island for these different creatures and what threats they could bring. So we see fights with Gigon, Megalon, Baragon, and others, and these play out as a mixture of monster battles and Pokemon battles, with Eragon giving commands and leading the strategy of the fights with kind of the magic and the telepathy. So that gives Eragon more of stuff to do during the fights. Give like, oh, you know, use your breath, do this type of stuff, or use that mountain, use this kind of direction a little bit, so that it's not just monster type things. During the battle with Anguirus, Saphira sends a fire blast into a mountain, revealing it was a volcano. We then see a blue energy blast come from the hole Saphira created. Godzilla steps out to protect his friend, its friend Anguirus. We get a Godzilla-Saphira fight, in which Godzilla ends up winning. Instead of killing her, however, we get more of what he did kind of with Kong, trying to show dominance, and Saphira is able to communicate, and says to Eragon that we have to go. It is explained that Godzilla is the ruler of this island. He keeps them all in check, and that's why they have not seen them throughout history as of now. Rodan had dropped Godzilla into a volcano, and he temporarily, and then when he escaped, he now was able to keep everything kind of in check. With the understanding that they mean no harm, Eragon and Saphira fly back, sensing that there's trouble back home, but knowing that they would have, if anything did happen to Godzilla, that they would have to come back to the island.
All right.
Sorry, Bobby, speaking of all these monsters, I had to kill a spider that was on my wall.
I was over here Googling every name you said to get a good picture of everyone that they were fighting. I'm excited to see what Joe did.
I know these very well. I'm interested in it, but yeah, Joe, I'm now extremely interested in seeing what we did, because Tristan and I, spoiler alert, have very common minds on the
Way to spoil my movie, man.
Exactly. I'm here to do that. But Joe, I'm gonna go throw out this spider. So tell me what you got.
All right. So to start off, my director is gonna be Guillermo del Toro. My Eragon is George McKay. He's the lead in 1917. My King Galbatorix is gonna be Ralph Fiennes. My voice of Saphira is gonna be Helen Mirren. My Brahm is gonna be Sean Bean. My Uncle Gero is Idris Elba, and his son, the cousin of my main character, Cousin Warren, is going to be Alfred Enoch, who is in Harry Potter. And then my character of Arya is going to be played by Zendaya. So, young farmer Eragon is out hunting with his uncle and cousin when he finds a weird-looking stone. He soon realizes it isn't a stone, but a dragon egg. The next night, a dragon hatches from it. He names the dragon Saphira, after a name he heard the village storyteller Brahm say once. Over the next few weeks, he tries to raise the dragon in secret until it grows so large it can no longer stay in the house. Eragon confides in Brahm, who lets him stay in the ice caves. During the journey from the house to the caves, Eragon and Saphira are spotted by two evil Razak, who serve the evil and ruthless King Galbatorix. They follow them, but Eragon and Saphira lose them in the forest. The two Razak go back to the village looking for answers. When they find out who the young man's uncle and cousin are, he kills them and burns their house down when they won't say where he went. The Razak report to the king that there is a dragon. When Eragon learns that the Razak burned his village down and killed his uncle and cousin, he, Saphira, and Brahm decide to kill the Razak. Brahm even gives Eragon his sword. We learn from Brahm that the king got his power from killing all of the other dragons and dragon riders in the kingdom, leaving only himself and his dragon, who he had summoned by magic, because he could not form a natural bond with any of the dragons. Brahm teaches Eragon how to fight, use magic, speak Elvish, and the ways of the dragon riders. They attack the Razak village, but Eragon is captured and placed in a cell with the elf Arya, who we learn accidentally sent the dragon egg to Eragon. She meant to send it to a group called the Varden, who are rebels trying to fight the king. Brahm and Saphira rescue Eragon and Arya. Brahm reveals to Eragon he was once a dragon rider, and his dragon was also named Saphira. The Varden are angry that the dragon has bonded with some random boy and not one of them, but they know this boy is their last hope. Eragon and Saphira's profile becomes too high, and King Galbatorix knows they have to die if people are going to respect him. King Galbatorix tells his servants to ready his dragon, Ghidorah, because the rule I have to use is use a kaiju in my movie, which, has already been hinted at. The movie ends with a battle between Eragon riding the small dragon Saphira and King Galbatorix on the massive Ghidorah. Saphira eventually kills Ghidorah, but King Galbatorix lives to be killed in a sequel, and that is my pitch. I wanted to kind of stick to what the book was, but include kaiju in it naturally, so I kind of just, subbed out the King's dragons and replaced it with, the one kind of kaiju. And I changed up a few things from the book to make it more of like one story and kind of fit a movie instead of a book. But that's my pitch.
All right, I gotta say I'm excited for both of these. I love the big kaiju's. I tweeted out the other day that the four monsters that I want to see in the Godzilla verse were Gigan, Anguirus, King Caesar from Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla as like a teammate of Godzilla, and one of my favorites of Biollante. But that being said, Ghidorah is definitely the best. We've just already seen him before. So I don't know. I'm a little torn on these because I'm excited for both. Tristan, you got any questions for him?
I will say I'm not as torn as you seem to be. I'm definitely leaning. I'm not making the final call on this one, so I'll say early that I'm leaning a bit towards Bobby. I think it just sounds like a bit more of like a fun, ridiculous good time. So my question for Joe is like, the biggest complaint about a lot of these kaiju movies recently is that there's so much plot and there's so much human drama, and then there's not enough of the action of the kaijus. So I was questioning like, why do you have like so much of this plot? I think and more in the argument, I want to hear you defend why yours is better than Bobby just making his a big action cool, like nothing, not having the plot there, just having like a big action fun Godzilla action style movie. So I just want to hear why your version is different than his and better.
All right, well, I can start by saying basically the the rule is feature a kaiju, not take over your entire movie with a kaiju fight. And my movie is Eragon with a kaiju in it, where I feel like Bobby just ripped the plot of Eragon, threw it away, and basically took bare minimum of it, if anything, and then just made it a kaiju fight movie. Where my movie, if you're an Eragon fan, you'll like my movie. If you're a kaiju fan, you'll like my movie. Where Bobby's, if you're going in to see Eragon, you're going to come out massively disappointed unless you also happen to be a big kaiju fan and just accept the fact that you are never going to get an Eragon movie. Where my movie, it's like, okay, they put a kaiju in there for some reason, but it worked, and I like the idea of like a David versus Goliath story of this small dragon versus like this big, massive, like King of the Dragons kind of thing, as opposed to just a movie that's not even really Eragon at all, except for, I guess, the main characters happens to be in Bobby's movie.
Yeah, I'll say this because I'm torn for these reasons, but I'll show my cards like Tristan did. I'm leaning towards Joe because I'm going to see a movie called Eragon. And if I'm someone who's going to see Eragon, I don't need Godzilla Monster Island with a character I don't give a shit about being the lead. And then everything else is, yes, you get the big fights and you get characters that I like I love Anguirus and Gigan, but why am I going to see those characters in a movie that's just titled Eragon? Joe did a better movie that is actually featured on Eragon and had a good kaiju fight at the end, so I lean towards that as far as a reboot of this specific movie. Joe, I understand your movie. I also like that, like, the reason that Kong Skull Island and all these movies are successful is because they have a good director and a good cast. And Joe has a very good cast. Bobby only cast two people, and yes, I love both of them, but he only cast two people, so it's very different than what we've been getting. Bobby, my question is, why did you just go for something so different and something so different than Eragon? Like, if I'm going to see an Eragon reboot, why am I seeing the Godzilla movie I want with characters that I don't want? Like, I feel like you just took the best of, like, the best of one world, shoved it into your movie, and forgot all about Eragon.
So basically, the whole point is, I think Eragon, when you read the story, when taken at least too seriously, I don't think it plays out too well and works out. And it's basically like it's kind of Star Wars too. Like it's very, very derivative of other things. And I'd rather see a story that sets up that beginning to where you have the chosen one storyline, but his goal now is, whoa, something invaded our land, our town, and I need to go protect it. And set up him as a character, because the whole beginning you get the kind of bonding and kind of growing as a character, and you kind of grow the attachment to Eragon as a person, and that's why he's kind of the chosen one to protect his land. And I'd rather focus on that as like taking out a threat and being the protector of this than kind of throwing in the whole convoluted plot of Eragon, because I find it a little too it's a little bit like what if you had tried to take the Kong Godzilla versus Kong plot seriously. Like it doesn't. It's very. I don't think it works extremely well. So I wanted to take the characters and show the bond between them, because I think that's it's kind of like Venom, where the best part of the movie is the dynamic between Tom Hardy's Eddie Brock and Venom, and the rest of it was kind of just a convoluted mess. I want to get the characters and get them right, so that you at least establish Eragon and Sahara correct and get their bond and their everything that you care about, and then put them in situations that are, one, fun and crazy to watch, but also you care that they both make it out of it alive. So I'd rather have you do that than kind of retell a story that we've seen a lot with the whole Chosen One. And then also, as far as featuring a kaiju, it is just, I mean, all of a sudden there's a very recognizable creature that everyone knows as Ghidorah from the Godzilla franchise. It doesn't really fit in, I don't think, to the rest of the movie. It just sets up a fun battle at the end, and that's it.
It's a world with dragons. Mine has a massive fucking dragon in it.
But
I will say
Ghidorah,
this: Ghidorah is not a dragon; he's an alien.
Well, he's
right.
He's an alien life form that is.
Yeah, when you have something that's not set up as it's in this world, and it comes at the very end of the movie, and it's from another franchise, I feel like that kind of throws it off a little bit as far as the tone and what you're going for with an Eragon straight up movie, than where if you're going to feature a kaiju in an Eragon movie, I'd rather see it in a world that establishes that these kaiju exist and they are a threat to everyone.
Well, maybe the alien world that he comes from is Eragon's world. But my thing against mine being convoluted is I don't feel it's convoluted. It's this farm boy finds an egg, the egg hatches a dragon. The dragon gets too big for the house, he moves, they get spotted, they get, found out, and then they get imprisoned. And in the prison, they meet a member of this group. She takes them to the group, and they kind of be like, hey, you need to help us fight the king. He fights the king.
So your director, then, you have Guillermo del Toro doing this. And when he does kind of the big action like stuff, we've seen it with Pacific Rim, where he kind of plays it as a dumb, fun movie. And the worst parts of that movie are the things that he does try to take seriously, other than like Idris Elba's speech is like, that's like the thing everyone knows from that. But the characters are not that great. And then when Guillermo del Toro does really, really well, and it's not as big and ridiculous, it's like these strong character movies with like creepy elements and things like that. Like, I don't know exactly what tone you're going for with Guillermo del Toro as the director, because if it's more in Pacific Rim, that's more suited to my type of movie rather than yours. And I don't know if the creepy, serious tone fits with a big monster fight.
Well, you can have, just because he kind of like didn't balance it once before doesn't mean he can't balance it. Like, I want like that more kind of creepy tone with like the Razak, who are like these weird, creepy, kind of henchman type characters to like chase my hero and go after my hero. And I feel like, especially because it's not like, it's dragons versus dragons, it's not like robots versus like monsters. I feel like when it's like kind of 1 versus 1, it can be more of a toned down tone, and it's not like all these, because I think if you have big giant robots, it's hard to do big giant robots seriously or like in a grounded kind of creepy tone. But I feel like dragons is easier to do in a more kind of creepy kind of Guillermo del Toro tone than just like giant robots, because it's like no one's gonna take like giant robots seriously. You kind of have to do it kind of campy and over the top.
Yeah, I'll say, Tristan, do you have your mind made up?
Yeah, I have my mind made up on here. I'm feeling one way for sure.
All right, I'm interested to hear what Tristan has to say, and then I Bobby did a good job selling me on his movie, so I'm definitely closer than I was, but I was torn originally, and I was leaning towards Joe. Bobby defended his well, but I'm interested to see what Tristan has to say.
I think Joe pretty much did a good thing. Like, we mentioned it after I made my comments earlier, and it was pretty much Joe's big defense the whole time, is he made Eragon with a kaiju in it. He didn't make a kaiju movie with like the dragon from Eragon crossing over, and I think Bobby's initial pitch really sold me, because it sounded just like a really fun, good time, like the last Godzilla King of Monsters, the one before this one, where it was just like, oh, here's like all the cool monsters for like a couple scenes. And I was like, oh, this is cool. And then I think Joe came in and gave me this thing that reminded me of like the sci-fi stuff from Godzilla versus Kong, where I was like, okay, I don't care about all this plot, just give me the monsters. But the more he talked about his defense, I'm leaning towards Joe now. I think he won me over in the fact that he made an actual Eragon movie and didn't just totally throw out the entire plot to make his own kaiju movie.
Yeah, in the end, like, if you put these two movies up, and I saw the trailers for both, the movie that I'm more interested in is Bobby's. It has kaiju fights, it has Godzilla, it has all the characters that I want to see, but that's not the only part of this. It's a reboot of Eragon, and Bobby's in no world ever is a reboot of Eragon. It's just like, hey, we'll slap this title on and then make the sequel to Godzilla versus Kong. Excuse me. Joe made, I think, as good of a job as you could have done making a reboot to Eragon with the actual plot. You chose a good director because Joe made a good point of just because we haven't seen him do like a hybrid of Pan's Labyrinth and Pacific Rim doesn't mean he can't, because he did both of those movies so well. So I'd like to see the mix of both of those. I think that would be a super interesting version, like thing for Guillermo del Toro to do next. So in the end, I was more sold on Joe's as specifically a reboot of Eragon. Bobby's is the movie I'd rather see because it has a lot of big monster fights, but Joe's is a real reboot of Eragon and wasn't just, we'll take a couple characters and then make a Godzilla movie. Joe's was, we'll have a kaiju in it, which is the rule, but then actually make the movie that I'm supposed to make. So Joe, because you sold me on a movie that I normally wouldn't care about, I would still see it. And you stuck more to the plot and characters that I'd be interested in, and you kind of did do the thing of like Kong Skull Island of, we're going to just put a great cast in, even if I don't care as much about the plot. But I would, because Guillermo del Toro sells you on that. So I'm going to go with Joe on this one. Bobby did a good job defending his, but I think Bobby just strayed too far away from the actual story of Eragon and just had too much going on. I don't need to see all of those monsters in one movie at once. I want to see I'd love a Monster Island movie one day that has absolutely no human characters and no dialogue, and it's only kaiju fighting. But Bobby kind of just did that, but then made it an Eragon movie.
I made a movie.
He just made a movie he wanted, yeah. And I understand that as someone who doesn't care about a lot of these fantasy movies, like, it made sense to me, but
my thought process.
Yeah, and I get it, but Joe did a good job of actually making a movie I'd be interested in.
He made Eragon. I just hope this ruling doesn't hurt me later for something else I did. But
yeah, I'd be dropping like $30 on Bobby's movie to go see it.
And my next point against Bobby's is basically like, if you're trying to turn this into a franchise, where do you go from he beats all of the kaiju? Like,
except for Godzilla.
Yeah. Exactly. He just beat 40 guys.
Joe sets his up. Yours. Joe's like expands the world of Godzilla and Eragon, and Bobby's is like, Eragon's in the world of Godzilla, kind of. You shouldn't really care.
Eragon will dragon kill everyone.
Well,
okay, so that leads it to 2-1 Joe. Bobby, what are we doing next?
Let's go to Power Rangers.
All right, Joe, confident in his choice, apparently. All right, so Power Rangers, which is interesting because I believe this is the one Tristan and I chose together. Bobby, who goes first?
I'll go first, sorry.
Oh, okay.
All right, so as it's kind of called, Saban's Power Rangers came out in 2017. It got a 50% on Rotten Tomatoes. The director was Dean Israelite. It is about 5 ordinary teens must become something extraordinary when they learn that their small town of Angel Grove and the world is on the verge of being obliterated by an alien threat. Chosen by destiny, our heroes quickly discover they are the only ones who can save the planet. But to do so, they will have to overcome their real-life issues, and before it's too late, band together as the Power Rangers. So that is Power Rangers. Bobby, you are going first. What do you have for us?
So I'll start with my director. I chose Janice Bravo, who worked a lot on Atlanta, and she directed the upcoming movie that's been at festivals, Zola, which is based on that tweet thread, which is like, it's a dramedy kind of deal, but she works in comedy pretty heavily and can work drama in. And it just seems like a up and coming good director that they could throw into a franchise. My it's basically to start. Mine is based on Power Rangers Time Force because my rule is that it must include time travel, given to me from Tristan, and I think I'd like to see a different group for the Power Rangers instead of kind of the classics. So my lead of the movie is the Pink Ranger, Jen Scott's, played by Haley Steinfeld. My Red Ranger / his ancestor, which I'll get into that, is named Wes Collins. He's going to be played by Dylan Minnette. He's the son in Prisoners, and he's in 13 Reasons Why. My Green Ranger, Trip Regis, is going to be played by Harry Shum Jr. from Crazy Rich Asians. Glee, Shadowhunters, he's been in a lot of stuff. Katie Walker, my Yellow Ranger, is going to be played by Letitia Wright, who everyone knows from the Marvel movies. My Blue Ranger, Lucas Kendall, is going to be played by Tiger Shroff, who is a Bollywood actor, and he's an action star in Bollywood and does his own stunts. And then my villain, Rancic, is going to be played by Benicio del Toro. I'd like to see him pull off a cool villain role in a movie like this. My movie starts in the year 3000, where the Rangers, also called the Time Force, deal with the crimes of mutants. One of the most dangerous is Rancic. He was arrested and sentenced to life for his crimes, including murder and a plan to travel back in time and take over the world in different eras, where his power would be unmatched. He escapes and he kills the Red Ranger Alex, who is also Jen, the Pink Ranger's fiancée. The movie then follows the Rangers following Rancic through different eras. They come back to kind of our time now to pick up Wes Collins, who is the ancestor of the Red Ranger who was killed, so that he could use his chronomorpher so that they could all they could have a full group and use their. Yes, that is Rancic. That is the villain.
Had to show everyone.
Yeah. But they pick up basically the ancestor of the Red Rangers. They have someone that they're teaching along the way, so you get a little bit more of a dynamic there, which is the plot in the TV show. But they need a full team in order to take out Rancic and use their Megazords and all that. So they follow him through time. So you basically get them going through different eras. So you get them back in like Old West. You get them in like some more modern times. You get that like any time period. They go through like maybe 5 different eras throughout the movie that they're following Rancic to. Let me get back to my thing here. So they follow and they collect the Red Rangers morpher. So the final battle after he collects he collects everything that he was looking for, which are the different chronomorphers, which would able to, so he's collecting the Quantum Ranger morphers since they were hidden in different time periods. That's why he's going to the different time periods, and that's why they are following him. The final battle is after he collects them all and transform into a Megazord creature he was able to create using the different chronomorphers. So this leads to a Megazord fight at the end, as a good old Power Rangers fashion. They fight in the time of the dinosaurs. That is where this one starts. So you have a dinosaur era with Megazords fighting at the end of the movie. During the battle, Rancic tries to escape back to the year 3000. The Rangers able to follow them, so it moves from dinosaurs back into the year 3000, from dinosaurs to the future in the final battle. The Rangers are able to defeat him in the future and arrest him back, so that sets them up back in their era at the end of the movie with Rancic defeated, and they have a new Red Ranger and a full team to kind of set them up on more adventures.
All right, interesting. Joe? I don't even remember what rule I chose for you, so I'm interested to hear.
All right, our pitches are not totally dissimilar. So my director is Chris McKay, who directed the Lego Batman movie, and my rule that I was given was I have to cross this over with another franchise, and so I decided to make this Lego, but that wasn't the only thing I did because I wasn't sure if Lego was totally a franchise. But so my hot-headed Red Ranger is going to be voiced by John Boyega. My sad and depressed Blue Ranger is going to be voiced by Forrest Wheeler from Fresh Off the Boat. My dark and kind of standoffish Black Ranger is going to be voiced by Haley Steinfeld. My kind of like, feminist kind of women can do anything men can do Pink Ranger is going to be voiced by Anna Kendrick. My cowardly Yellow Ranger is going to be voiced by Justice Smith, who was in Detective Pikachu, and he was also in the Jurassic World. My Zordon going to be voiced by Jeff Bridges, and then my Lord Zed and Rita Repulsa, who were eventually become married in the original series, and so I kind of wanted to go with a real life married couple. My Nick Offerman is the voice of Lord Zed, and Megan Mullally is the voice of Rita Repulsa. So, Power Rangers is super campy and ridiculous, and I think by trying to make it serious, you're not really honoring and respecting what Power Rangers is. And so I think by crossing it over with the Lego franchise, you can still be fun and campy, but you're in a medium that can still like be a quality movie. The Lego Movie and Lego Batman movies had crossovers with other franchises and were pretty successful. The Lego Ninjago movie was kind of a box office bomb for Lego, did not have any crossovers. And so people clearly want crossovers in their Lego movies, and that's what I decided to do. And since Universal has the film rights for Lego now, I thought Power Rangers would be a good launching point for Universal Lego movies going forward. So, the movie opens with a new Rangers team fighting Goldar. However, they aren't working together. Everyone is trying to do their own thing. They are all in their Zords. However, Goldar smashes one of them before they can form the Megazord. They lose the fight but survive to fight another day. Zordon is angry and says that they need to learn to work together before they lose everything. Meanwhile, we see Goldar report back to Lord Zed and Rita Repulsa, who are basically an evil parody of a sitcom couple. Lord Zed and Rita realize it's time to strike and head towards Earth. Zordon teleports the Rangers across dimensions to learn to work together. First, they land inside an old castle. They are without suits, their Zords, or powers. Zordon tells the Red Ranger that because he is the Red Ranger, it is his responsibility to lead the team. He says they must escape the castle by sunrise. The castle is a maze. You take the wrong turn, you could meet Dracula, the Wolfman, Frankenstein, or even the creature from the Black Lagoon. Since it's Lego, they will be more comedic interpretations of the characters, but still evil and intimidating. I'm thinking more towards like what Joker was in Lego Batman and not exactly like Hotel Transylvania. The team can't even agree on which way to go or where they've been, and they slowly end up splitting up and facing the various classic Universal monsters, all voiced by the actors who were supposed to play them in the failed Dark Universe. The group meets back up at the exit and realizes that it's better to face their enemies together than alone. They walk through the door and find themselves on an island in the middle of the day. The Rangers also now have their suits and quickly learn it's an island populated by dinosaurs. It's Jurassic Park. The Rangers must learn to work together to fight off the T-Rex along with the Velociraptors. They start working as a team with coordinated attacks. When they are safe and on a helicopter leaving the island, they are immediately whisked off to the streets of Los Angeles. They think they are back at home until a bunch of cars race by at top speeds. They summon their Zords and chase after them. The cars stop in a small suburb and outstep the Fast and the Furious crew. They talk with the Power Rangers about how you have to be more than a team, you have to be a family. They then race their cars against the Zords, with the Rangers helping each other throughout the race. Before it ends, the Rangers are pulled back to their world by Zordon. Lord Zed and Rita Repulsa, who we have occasionally been cutting back to and see bickering like an old married couple, have arrived on Earth. The Rangers are winning the fight against Zed, Rita, and Goldar until Zed summons the Putties, which are kind of like the Power Ranger henchmen. The Power Rangers are losing until a 1970s Dodge Charger rips through a sea of putties. The Fast and the Furious crew have shown up to help. The Rangers win and defeat Rita and Lord Zed and have finally become not only a team, but a family, and that's my pitch.
All right, I love that pitch. Not gonna lie. So, Tristan, you have any questions for these two?
Yeah, I mean, I really loved that last one. Bobby's first pitch, I was like, wow, really good pitch. I liked it a lot. And then Joe's came out, and I was like, wow, another really good pitch, a fun one. I can't wait to hear these two argue about it. I know it's the one we are deciding together, so I don't want to show my hand too much, but I am mostly 50-50 right now. I think either one could pull me in their corner by the end of it.
Yeah, I think so too. I really love Joe's, but Bobby definitely had a strong one as well. So, as far as questions go, Bobby, Joe has the theme of like the Power Rangers needing to come together and be a family, which I think fits perfectly for like a Lego verse type of movie. Mm-hmm. What would be like the theme that you're kind of centering around for your Power Rangers movie?
So it would be more of a, in a Power Ranger kind of way. You have the lead character kind of going through grief of her fiance and that whole thing, but then having to kind of push past and like teach this new person. So it's more of like she's struggling with it, and there's some conversations, but that's like maybe the heart of the movie is her character and being able to get through that. But it's more of a like the team. It's not a Lego movie, so it doesn't need like it has a lesson. Like this is the lesson of the movie, but it's a fun team that are trying to teach this new guy while also navigating the different eras, and it's more of a fun adventure movie from that point with a heart in the center of it.
Okay. My only other question, and Bobby, you can just kind of start your fight with this because I'm sure this is something Joe wants to get into, but just in case, because I need it addressed.
I had one question for Joe too before we get started.
All right, cool. Then I'll just ask you this, Bobby. Why this director? I get like Marvel just throws directors in that have done things before, but Zola does not look. I don't watch the trailer for Zola and think, Power Rangers.
She's a really good writer, which is what I want for this. She's worked on a lot of Atlanta a lot of comedy TV shows, and a lot of things that in a lot of her work she's known for her characters, and that's kind of one of the more important things in it. You can do big, like Marvel has shown, as long as you have it storyboarded out and all that, the action and everything will fall into place pretty well. And I want her to be able to have comedy and realistic, like fun characters to follow through these different eras. So it's more of what's someone that I could think that could make this jump and make me want to watch this movie where it's not just noise, where it's not just the action. I kind of want to like the characters and laugh along the way. And I think she's shown that in her movies. And also anything she's written too.
Okay. And Tristan has one question for Joe, then we'll get into our fight.
Yeah, Joe, I just want to get your thoughts on, because my initial hesitation towards yours was, I don't really want to see like a Lego animated Power Ranger movie. I want to see like a cool live action, like MCU level kind of Power Ranger movie. So I want to get your defense on why did you make this a Lego crossover, not just have it be like Power Ranger crossing over with some other franchise and it's still being in the tone and the world of Power Ranger the whole time?
Like originally that was my thought, was I was just gonna do the Power Rangers. It was kind of gonna be the same thing, but they somehow the Power Rangers have a fight that they have to go to Jurassic Park, and that was gonna be my pitch. But I feel like Power Rangers is inherently very campy. Like they did a less campy version in the 2017 version, and there was like a fan film with like Katie Sackhoff and like James Vanderbeek that was like more serious and set in the future, but it wasn't like Power Rangers. They basically like told their own story and set the Power Rangers thing in it. Where I just think the Power Rangers need to be inherently campy, and I think Lego, especially with like the Lego Batman movie, which parodied and kind of took a lot from the 66 TV series, allows you to do that without being just ridiculous and dumb. It basically allows you to be campy without being dumb.
I like that. That was my last question for you. So if you guys are ready to go, I'm ready to hear you guys fight it out.
Yeah, I'll start with just as far as my hesitation towards a Lego version of Power Rangers is Power Rangers. It really is it's a product of its time as far as its fan base starts and stops really in the 90s. And what the problem with that with Lego is that I think what Lego does best is takes established franchises that people know well and play off them, and make fun of them, parody those, as the leads, like Lego Batman. And when it's something like Ninjago, which again is generational but to a much younger audience, that one didn't work nearly as well. So I would rather see them do a good Power Rangers movie and have a franchise first for them to be able to play off of and have more jokes to make fun of, where otherwise it's just kind of it's a team of people, but you can't play into the Lego-ness, the humor that is in a lot of the Lego movies that are very self-referential, and very parody-like. And if it doesn't do that and it's with your lead group, then it to me plays out more like the straight to DVD stories of the Legos that they put a ton out there of, and they're more just like fun kids shows, but they don't go into the self-referential kind of aspects. So that would be my worry for that.
But my thing is, like, I feel like Power Rangers is pretty popular, and you can kind of play into like the 90s camp of it, because my whole thing is they're a new team. This isn't like the team from the television show. They're a new team, and this is kind of they're early in their mission, so you can kind of play off the fact of like they're from the 90s and you can have references to that. But also in my movie you have like the Universal monsters that you can make references to. You have the Jurassic Park, which you can make references to. You have Fast and the Furious, which you can make references to. Like there's, even if maybe certain people won't get all of the Power Rangers references, there's other franchises with the worlds they go to that I think people will find interesting. And my thing against yours is it's like, number one, I don't really know where all you're going. You said they went to like the 3,000 years in the future, and they went to see the dinosaurs. But mine, they fight dinosaurs too, but it's on Jurassic Park, which I feel like is automatically people are more interested in and more hyped about than just like blindly fighting dinosaurs from just dinosaur times.
I mean, I so basically they have, there's the future, there's more of a modern time, there's the dinosaurs, there's the Old West, and then you could throw in any other like era as you would want if you want them to like take out the Queen's castle and like type of stuff and have a fight a bunch of there, but and knights, you can like whatever you want to throw them into.
Would you rather
like
see the Power Rangers fight
but
random
the thing
knights or the Universal monsters?
They're in that era
in a castle.
So what I would say is with yours, I would rather see any of the other franchises that you have in your movie as the lead and the focus rather than the Power Rangers. Personally, I mean, I would rather see a Jurassic Park Lego movie or just a Lego movie with a character that's not a franchise that is visiting all these other franchises, not a franchise visiting a franchise, visiting a franchise. Like, I don't think that works well. And as far as mine goes, I think if you want to be able to do a Power Rangers live action, well, you do need to have enough of the outrageousness in there, and that's where the time travel comes into play. And also not having the association for like people will go see a Power Rangers movie, but the fans of it may not be. You don't have to try to make the characters, Jason and all the originals fit what people expect and like, oh, I want them to do the Green Ranger saga. It gives them freedom to do a little bit more with the story, to where instead of we need them to fight Rita Repulsa in the first one and have Goldar or whatever, and then we need the Green Ranger saga and do all this stuff. You have a freedom to be like, we have these characters that you like, and it's the Power Rangers team, and you can do whatever they want. They can go to any era in time. They can have any bad guy and villain in history that they can go up against, as well as Power Rangers villains. I think mine sets up a franchise that would work for the Power Rangers, as well as one Haley Steinfeld in live action being a really great lead, making the lead the Pink Ranger. I think is a really good thing to do and give the focus to them. I also have someone from like a Bollywood representation who's an awesome action star, and he can do all his own stunts and have a lot of fun fight scenes. So I think mine just establishes a franchise that you can actually move forward with, where yours will probably run out of steam because as far Lego has already run out of steam a lot of the time. Their box office dipped. The quality has gone down with like the Ninjago movie and Lego Movie 2. So you'd have to recapture the magic of the first two that worked really well, which were the Lego Movie and Lego Batman. Everything after that point started to go downhill quite a bit. So you're trying to recapture magic that they haven't done in quite a while with a franchise that I don't think is the right fit.
See, I do think it's the right fit, because a lot of the points you're making about yours is like, with yours, because they time travel, they can fight any villain at any time in history. With Lego, you can do the same thing. And now with Lego switching to it was at Warner Brothers and now it's at Universal, you have a whole different team of people who could be excited about doing a Lego movie. So it doesn't really matter if the quality's dipped, because it's not gonna. I mean, I have the director of Lego Batman, which succeeded, but you still have a company behind it that's new and fresh and can have their own new fresh ideas of what to do with Lego. So what Warner Brothers did with it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I'll say this. We definitely need to keep the show going, because we got 15 minutes until we're at 2 hours, and this is like our fourth movie. So I think I have my decision made up. Tristan,
my last point of that is just, it just seems like the Lego gimmick runs out of steam quickly, even if certain people may end up liking the movies. And I think the Power Rangers franchise is one that would run out of steam pretty quickly with it.
Counterpoint, Power Rangers has never had any steam as a movie franchise.
I know. That's why I don't think it's a good choice.
No, I mean,
I got mine made up.
All right, Tristan, we're doing this together, but let's hear what you have to say first, and hopefully I agree with you, make it easy.
I enjoyed Bobby's pitch. I feel like as a kid who watched Power Rangers a lot, I would get a lot of like nostalgia out of seeing these characters in live action and doing all this cool stuff. So I think that'd be something that I have a lot of fun watching. But I do ultimately lean towards Joe on this decision. I think he just sounds like a perfect Lego movie for me. I think it sounds like exactly what I would like out of these Lego movies, like something like Lego Batman. Just do these like one-off. Oh, here's Lego Power Rangers, and next year do here's Lego Jurassic Park, and then make it that kind of like almost like an anthology franchise. So I really like Joe's direction for that with Lego. So I'm going with Joe on this.
Yeah, I'll say this. I think Bobby made some good arguments as to why Power Rangers isn't like a strong franchise or anything, but I think all of the arguments Bobby made hurt his movie more so than hurting Joe's movie, because Joe made a Lego movie that's a popular franchise, yes, and maybe it's been losing steam, but Joe's bringing back like the director of Lego Batman, which he, as he said, was a success. He's bringing in franchises that are popular in Universal that we have not really seen in the Lego movies, and I think Joe did such a good creative job of really nailing all of the characters. Like, okay, this is the Brave Ranger, this is the Women's Power Ranger, this is the the scared one is the Yellow Ranger. Like, Joe did a very good job of capturing his franchise of the Lego movie. When I made this rule choice for him, I never envisioned this being a Lego movie, and he sold me on it. And Bobby talking about how Power Rangers is not popular just hurt his live action version, because it sounds like a huge budget, and it just sounds like one of the most it sounds like a franchise killing movie, because it sounds like it would be a huge budget, and even if people like it, it would, as Bobby said, Power Rangers is not super popular with a lot of people nowadays. It sounds like it would just flop, and if you're doing all this time travel and everything, it would be an insane budget and just not make any money. So, would I see Bobby's movie? Maybe, but I never even saw the new Power Rangers movie, and I thought it looked fine.
Bobby's could have just a team
wasted
of
my
Power
time.
Rangers travel back in time and fight dinosaurs, and I think adding a bunch of time travel and making it huge and convoluted and franchise level was it really hurt it.
Yeah, I think Bobby made his too big, and Joe made his a good, like, starting level of a new type of Power Rangers franchise, and I think Joe takes the point for that. So I go Joe, and that makes it 3-1, I believe. So Bobby needs to go on a rally here to
this will
win.
be interesting for sure. Let's do Gem and the Holograms. I'll let Joe go first.
Oh God.
This is gonna be an interesting fight. I will say that. So, Gem and the Holograms. People probably don't know. This was a cartoon show that no one knew about. It came out in 2015. It got a 22% on Rotten Tomatoes. The director is John M. Chu, famous for Justin Bieber, Never Say Never Again. So this is what it's about.
Yeah, definitely what he's famous for.
Yeah, that's what he's done. Teenager Jerica, which is a name, played by Aubrey Peoples, is an extremely shy and talented singer-songwriter whose dreams of stardom come true when she forms the group Gem and the Holograms. Other members include her younger sister Kimber. God, there are some brutal names in this. Played by Stephanie Scott. On keyboards, drummer Shayna, played by Aurora Perino, and bassist Aja, played by Haley Kiyoko. With help from Rio, played by Ryan Guzman, the son of the CEO Juliette Lewis of Starlight Music. The four young band members find their own voice while taking the world by storm. Isn't Meryl Streep in this movie?
No, that's a different movie.
Yeah.
Oh, I was thinking the whole time that
No.
Meryl Streep was in this. She got nominated for.
No.
She doesn't sink this low.
No, it was a different shitty song movie.
You're mixing up two.
Choosing Into the Woods,
things.
also great.
No,
not Into the Woods. It's the other song one she did.
The one that she learned
awful.
how to play guitar for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
She was also in Prom on Netflix. Check
All right,
out
we got
Prom.
it.
Musical movie.
All right, so we'll get going. So, Bobby, who's going first?
I'm going first.
Joe.
Right?
Joe is.
Joe. All right, let's hear it.
All right.
Ricky and the Flash, by the way.
Yep.
Yes, that is what I was thinking of the whole time.
So my director is Rob Zombie because that's the rule I had to use. Is I had to make this a Rob Zombie movie. And keep that in mind. I had to make this a Rob Zombie movie. I didn't have to make a Gem and the Holograms movie directed by Rob Zombie. So My Jerrica Benton is going to be played by Taylor Momsen. She was Cindy Lou Who in How the Grinch Stole Christmas. She also had a role in Gossip Girl, but she's currently the lead singer of the rock band The Pretty Reckless. My Kimber Benton is Abigail Breslin. My Aja Leaf is played by Brenda Song. And then my Shayna Elmsford is played by Olivia Olson, who was the girl that Liam Neeson's son had a crush on. And she's also a voice in Adventure Time. My villain, Eric Raymond, is played by Nicolas Cage. And then the character of Zombie, of course, or the character of Synergy is, of course, played by Sherry Moon Zombie, because I had to put her in this movie somewhere. Otherwise, it's not a Rob Zombie movie.
Of course.
Point for that.
After college students, Jerrica and Kimber's dad dies. Their father's business partner, Eric Raymond, tries to take over the music label he and their father started, Starlight Music, and turn it from a rock label to a pop label. Jerrica and Kimber find 4 sets of earrings that were a gift from their father. They and their friends put it on and immediately become possessed by the demon of music, Synergy. While wearing the earrings, their looks and personalities completely transform. Their clothes become dirty and tattered, their faces become painted white, and they become crazy and deranged. When they find out that Eric is making a battle of the bands with various bands in the area, with the winner being signed to Starlight, and that Eric has rigged it for his curated pop girl group to win, they decide to crash the audition under the name Gem. Because the show was named Gem, the movie was Gem and the Holograms, I'm just keeping my movie title as Gem. Eric is so terrified and scared of Gem that he allows them to enter. Jerrica later talks to him about Gem, and they make a wager. If Gem wins Battle of the Bands, he has to give up his ownership of the company. If any other band wins, then Jerrica and Kimber will give up their ownership. The girls show up to a dive bar for a gig and perform. After the gig, the girls take off their earrings, and they talk about how exhilarating it is, but how terrified they are of their personas. Jerrica shows up to the label's office and sees Eric yelling at and sexually harassing the girl group he is rigging the Battle of the Bands for. That night, she puts on the earrings and shows up to his house to confront him, and if he ever abuses anyone again, she and the rest of the band will show up next time. Gem ends up winning the Battle of the Bands, and Eric gives up control of the company after being surrounded by Gem. Jerrica talks to the band Eric created and discovers their true passion is rock music and signs them as a rock band as well, and that's my pitch.
All right. So, Joe made a Rob Zombie, Gem the Holograms. Okay, just Gem. I picked this rule, Joe, because Rob Zombie has directed music videos and has helped direct his own videos and can show that he can do music on screen, and also because this movie's going to suck no matter what, and so is Rob Zombie movies. So I feel like you did a good job doing that pitch. So Bobby, I'm interested to see what you got going up against Joe's.
Hey, according to Dave Morales from Fox TV, Gem and the Holograms is inspirational, entertaining, a total jam session. It's right there on the back of the Blu-ray.
And 2 stars. But they left that part out. So
Yeah.
Bobby, I'm interested to see what you have for us.
So the rule I was given is that I must use the nominees of the 93rd Academy Awards for this movie.
Ooh.
Gem and the Holograms deserves an Academy Award.
Yeah. So my
We went different directions with our rule pairings.
Yeah. My director is going to be Chloe Zhao, who did Nomadland, but she's also doing Marvel's The Eternal, so I know she can do more of a fun-styled movie when given the opportunity, and that's kind of what I'm going for, is her Marvel roots here. And so for my lead...
No one has seen.
No, but you know what Marvel gives, so you know she can do it. Amanda Seyfried is my lead Gem, Jerrica Benton. She is a good singer. I've seen her do it plenty of times, and I believe she could pull this off. My Aja is going to be played by Maria Bakalova from the new Borat movie. My Andra Day is going to be playing Shayna, and she is also a singer, so if you need anyone to do backing vocals and stuff, she can definitely do it. Carrie Mulligan is going to be Kimber, the younger sister. And then as their manager, I'm going to have Viola Davis. And then as far as the plot of my movie needs another band in it, so to keep kind of casting these guys that I think could do something. They're kind of rival group in this There's going to be Daniel Kaluuya is going to be their lead singer. Sacha Baron Cohen is going to be their erratic drummer. Leslie Odom Jr. Leslie Odom Jr. is the lead singer. Daniel Kaluuya is the guitarist, but kind of the leader of the band. And then Stephen Yoon is going to be their bassist. And I think that creates a really fun kind of group for them to go up against. So my plot is that Jem Benton runs Starlight Music with her sister Kimber and her foster sisters Aja and Shayna. They are also secretly the famous rock group The Holograms, using technology created by Jem's father to disguise their identities using holograms. The reason they do this is they also use these abilities to fight crime. So they are like a rock band that also is more, so it puts them into more of a crime fighting. That's why they're hiding their identities type deal. So they're using the technology along their instruments, or in Gem case, vocals and microphone, to give them special powers, like using sound waves to fly, send enemies in the air, throw powerful power chord punches, and etc. to fight crime. One night during a concert, their manager frantically calls Gem, informing her that someone broke into her father's lab. Soon after, the band called the Stingers appears, rivaling the Holograms' popularity. Record companies then start getting robbed by a group with similar musical powers as the Holograms. The Stingers are trying to steal from the record companies who have ripped off countless musicians. We get a fun action musical, with that being the centering kind of plot, with the Holograms going against the Stingers. Very kind of stylized action, with songs being played, like it's going to be 80s songs throughout the entire thing. Whenever they fight, they're going to be using the music and different like licks and chords and riffs from songs as their attacks. So you kind of get music throughout. So you get a fun movie where they end up defeating the Stingers, but they kind of realize their intentions of the, that the music producers and companies had been ripping off a lot of bands. So they do that by using at the end, they use their own record company to give musicians second chances who are victims of the music industry system.
All right. Interesting. I'm gonna be honest here, Joe. I'm a little disappointed with the pitch, because I literally paired Rob Zombie in this movie. I gave my reasons, but mainly because I expected like a Green Room type movie.
Yeah.
And that's what I think Rob Zombie could have done really well, and you went a different direction. So it might be a tough fight for you to show my colors, because I don't know if you necessarily hit either Gem and the Holograms or Rob Zombie very well. But my question for Bobby is, if I'm someone who doesn't give a shit about Gem and the Holograms, doesn't know what it is, what like sells me on your movie?
So the original does not have like that action crime fighting type of thing going on, at least like in the movies and that. So like what it's going to be is it's a fun musical action movie where you get action comedy. So you get you get like famous riffs, famous music things going on. You get fun action, and then you get at least a little bit of a message about the music industry and how it can spit people up and chew them out, like that whole thing thrown in. But it's more centered around one band against another band, rising popularity. So the fight for that, and as well as their fight trying to stop them from stealing money from these record companies. You get fun fight scenes, so it's more of a fun movie.
Okay, Tristan, you have any questions?
Yeah, I'm echoing your sentiment that I think Joe has an uphill battle in the next couple of minutes, so this might not be as long of an argument as the last few have been. But yeah, I'm leaning that direction. I'm excited to hear you guys argue, because I do think Joe, as usual, can argue his way out of the hole here and bring up some good points. So I'm looking forward to the arguments. I just want to hear it get going now.
Yeah, we'll start with Joe. Why is your movie stronger? Defend it. Stay alive.
One thing you brought up was my movie wasn't Rob Zombie or Gem and the Holograms. So my thing is, my plot of my movie is I watched the first like 4 episodes of the original animated show, and the plot of my movie is basically the plot of the first 2 episodes. So it's hard to say it's not Gem and the Holograms when it's literally the plot of the pilot and second episode, which were basically a part 1 and part 2 type deal. So it's definitely Gem and the Holograms, and I thought my movie would be interesting as kind of like these demon like women walking around, and mine can be a legitimate band. My lead singer is a legitimate rock singer outside of this movie. I don't know what like the singing capabilities of Bobby's, band members are, and I feel like that's one of the advantages I have as
I
as
have
my,
I'll get into that, but I have some real good singers.
but so mine has like legitimate rock band qualities. I have Rob Zombie type music, and that's kind of what I want to go for because it's a Rob Zombie movie. And I feel like my thing against Bobby's is it's like you said, mine isn't Gem and the Holograms. His has like crime fighting and music crime fighting. I just feel like his is gonna be like very bland and boring, where mine is more of a risk with a kind of like evil rock band lead or as the lead of this movie. And I feel like that's more of an interesting take than just like we're a band that has that fights with music. I don't know how interesting or compelling that really is.
So to defend just really quickly the cast of everyone, one, Amanda Seyfried is a very good singer. You can look her up, and she's sang a lot. But also, Andra Day is legitimately a musical artist and singer, and she was nominated, so that works out perfectly. Also, Leslie Odom Jr. is a Broadway actor and is on Hamilton. He's Aaron Burr, so like he's the lead singer of that other group. So you have plenty of musical talent as far as that aspect goes, which is one of the draws of the movie, is you get fun covers of these songs. As far as yours goes, it would have been better. Rob Zombie does not handle like plot very well in his movies. It's kind of the worst part of his like Halloween, like
Yeah, well,
any of
mine's
his
plot's
remakes of the
already
horror movies.
spelled out for him. He just has to.
No, it's not. It's not that he needs to spell it out, but even just like handling it, he does maybe the horror elements and like things well. And I don't think that yours has enough Rob Zombie, like elements that Rob Zombie could pull off in his style really well and really fit to him. And I think that really makes it just not a fit for this rule. You could have gone in a completely different direction and maybe done more of what I did with Godzilla versus, or making basically Godzilla versus Kong out of Eragon, and fitting it, more towards Rob Zombie as a director, because you had to make it a Rob Zombie movie, as you said. Mine has quite a bit of elements of Gem and the Holograms, but it adds something that actually would be a hook for people to go watch nowadays instead of a generic rise to fame music teen movie. It adds fun action and stuff that's popular right now. It really always is, like fun action movies with, and then 80s music in there too. I think that just adds a fun element, a little twist on it. And then you have really good actors that can pull it off, and they can pull off any tone that you kind of want to, like. It's more of a comedic aspect as far as like interactions between bandmates and all that. And I think I have a really good group that can do that. We have Amanda Seyfried's done a variety of comedies. You have Maria Bakalova, who was just in Borat 2. I think, and also Sacha Baron Cohen in the other band. So I think I as far as cast, I think mine beats yours. I think as far as
it's hard to
entertainment value, it
cast
beats
well.
yours for sure.
Like if I put a bunch of like A-list awesome actors in there, it's like, well, they would never do a Rob Zombie movie. So I tried to make as good of a cast as possible that would still do a Rob Zombie movie. I have Nicolas Cage as my villain. Who doesn't want to see Nicolas Cage going fucking crazy in a Rob Zombie movie?
I have one last question for Joe before we end this, because I don't know about you, Johnny, but I haven't been swayed very much. But I do want to give.
Ask your question, and
I want to give Joe one last shot here. Like the biggest attack on you, so in this argument here between whether it was me and Johnny or Bobby, all has been this doesn't feel like it goes far enough into being a Rob Zombie movie. It doesn't feel like it's that green room level horror that I was looking for with this kind of a pairing. So I want to give you a second here to just defend. You complained about having to make a Rob Zombie movie, and you didn't really make it a Rob Zombie movie. So I want to get your rationale for that.
I mean, there are horror elements. You have like her like attack, going after Eric Raymond in his house. You have them like performing on stage and like just being fucking creepy and like violent and freaking everyone everyone out. And I feel like there are those elements in there, those horror elements in there of like basically they're a demon possessed band that goes around performing rock music.
All right, yeah, Tristan's making the final decision, but I'll say this. Yeah, if Joe stuck with Rob Zombie as his director, obviously he had to, and then made this closer to a green room where it's an all-women band going into this awful situation, and Nick Cage was a great choice. If he was the Patrick Stewart role of like the super evil main guy trying to get these people murdered, I think Joe would have won this, because that's a movie that I would see. I highly recommend Wally's Wonderland to anyone who hasn't seen it, just came out. It's fantastic. It's a Nicolas Cage. Basically, just he doesn't say a word of dialogue in the entire movie, and he fights against animatronics that are trying to murder him. It's fantastic. I recommend it. I forget if it's Willy's or Wally's, but it's Willy's or Wally's Wonderland. It's amazing.
I second that recommendation.
I definitely watched that. Um, Joe just went a little too far the other way. Like I would have liked the super just violent movie, and the possession thing doesn't really sell me. Bobby's movie I would only see because I love Daniel Kaluuya and Stephen Yeun. They're probably my two favorite actors in Hollywood today. I don't give a shit about the rest of his plot, but it just sounds better than what Joe did. So I lean towards Bobby. I'd go Bobby.
Yeah, I feel like as soon as Bobby started talking about a musical and they fight each other with music, I was like, wow, he knew I was the one judging this one and not Johnny. He really went in for that. But yeah, I think that Joe could have won this if he went really far in one direction or the other. Like if he of course, like you said, done the green room style horror thing, but if he'd also been like, okay, I want to give Rob Zombie a genre he's never done before, and I'm just gonna give him like something totally out of his horror wheelhouse entirely, and then I'd be like, okay, that's kind of interesting. I'd like to see him try something else. But
yeah,
Joe tried to get that middle ground.
Rob Zombie was working on a Broad Street Bullies movie for a little while about the 74, 75 era, like Philadelphia Flyers that won 2 cups. And I was super excited for it, and it never came out. So, you know, I think he could do something outside of his genre, but if you're going to go with like a horror movie, I think Green Room was the way to go. Like, basically just rip that off, and I think you could have had like a fun horror movie.
Yes, I'm going with Bobby. That's the movie that I feel like I'd go to see. It'd be dumb and it'd be kind of like just ridiculous, but I'd see all these actors I really like. I mean, I like Amanda Seyfried a lot. I really like the girl in Borat. I think she's going to have an interesting career ahead of her. So I would have a really, really good time watching Bobby's, and Joe's just seems like it would be a forgettable Rob Zombie movie that nobody talks about.
Yeah, that was the one, honestly, though, that I was like, this is the hardest rule to make a good movie, and this is the hardest movie to make a good movie, so I'm going to just pair them together and throw it at Joe. He had a very uphill battle to make a watchable movie, but I think there was the only direction he could have gone was basically rip off Green Room, and I think he had that in his possibilities, but as far as like that went, I'm like, you know what, Joe, you have a throwaway, but you're still up 3-2. You got to win the next point, so what movie are we going with?
Yeah, I will say I've never seen Green Room, and I've never seen a Rob Zombie movie, so kind of just...
That hurts. That does hurt. That.
Yeah, it's probably
I recommend. Green Room was in my top 100 films of the
good.
decade. That's a fantastic movie. It's super violent, though.
If you're looking for a good Rob Zombie movie, check out Lords of Salem.
I got to step out for just a second, but where are we going for the next one?
The Mummy.
Okay.
I'll go first if you need me to.
Right back. Yeah, I won't be long.
Alright. So I kind of didn't want to go first, but if I need to, I will.
I'll take my time. Let's find it.
We can talk about Rob Zombie for the next 5 minutes. Or Gem of the
House
Holograms.
of a Thousand Corpses, The Devil's Rejects, and
I think I've actually
Lords
seen
of
The Devil's
Salem,
Rejects, but it was
fine.
so long ago. Like, if you were to ask me anything about it, I couldn't tell you anything about it.
I went to the Universal Halloween nights at Universal Hollywood, where they do these intensely high detail theme mazes for every Halloween, and they base them off of Universal franchises. And they had one that was Rob Zombie. It was really intense. He went through like the factory of House of a Thousand Corpses. There were like bodies hanging from the ceiling you had to go through. It's pretty awesome.
The only thing
If you're ever out in the Universal area, either Florida or California, wherever the locations are at, highly recommend Halloween Horror Nights.
Yeah, the only Rob Zombie thing I've seen is his trailer from Grindhouse, which I watched for this pitch to see like. That's why I have Nicolas Cage, because Nicolas Cage had a cameo in that. The fake movie was like the werewolf women of the SS or some shit.
Yeah, I'm curious because I'm kind of a zombie fan in a way, so I was curious what you guys would do with that. But
yeah, I like a couple of his movies, but not a good director. I mean, objectively, not a good director. But I like his first few movies.
Right.
I think are pretty entertaining. So. We're going with The Mummy that came out in 2017. It was supposed to be the start
Bobby's
of the Monsters,
first, right?
Or Bobby's going first. We'll go. This got a 16% of Rotten Tomatoes. The director was Alex Kurtzman. It stars Nick as Tom Cruise as Nick Morton is a soldier of fortune who plunders ancient sites for timeless artifacts and sells them to the highest bidder. When Nick and his partner come under attack in the Middle East, the ensuing battle accidentally unearths Amenet, a betrayed Egyptian princess who was entombed under the desert for thousands of years. With her powers constantly evolving, Morton must now stop the resurrected monster as she embarks on a furious rampage through the streets of London. It is garbage. So, Bobby, what did you do with it?
So we talked a lot about him, and the rule Tristan gave me is that I had to make this a Rob Zombie movie. So I'll start with my cast. My main character, kind of my only like really big actor, is Thomas, played by Riz Ahmed. My William is gonna be Thomas's best friend, who he kind of convinced to come join. That's gonna be played by Jesse Plemons. My I have Isa Gonzalez, is going to be Mia in my movie, and she's going to be one that kind of studies the Egyptian culture and can give us a little bit at least of exposition in the beginning, and that's kind of her like scientific kind of background. I have Billy Magnuson as Charlie. He's kind of the muscle of the group, kind of is there just to bully some people. I have the guy who's funding this expedition that they're going on is going to be played by William Fickner, just a good character actor. Is going to be played by going to be named Tony. And then also I did cast Sherry Moon Zombie as Sandra, who is she's there. She's one of the first ones to get killed off, so I didn't really give her too much of a character, but she's in the movie. So this is going to be a group of treasure hunters trying to strike it rich by stealing gold from Egyptian tombs. Our lead character Thomas wants to use the money to help his daughter through college, since he's poor, but he's very gifted in this aspect in the treasure hunting. So that kind of gives us our sympathetic kind of lead character. They enter the tomb of Imhotep and accidentally awaken the sleeping mummy. We now get a dark, violent, creepy horror movie with the mummy trying to kill off the intruders. We get kills by the mummy himself, as well as booby traps with Egyptian weapons. So we get kind of the gore aspect with a lot of the booby traps that are historically in a lot of these tombs. We throughout the movie we get like at one point a kind of spike pit opens up as one of the traps, and also we have them using these torches. So Thomas knows that he needs to use some type of fire to kill the mummy. It's kind of the only way, and throughout the movie that's like the one running plot of him trying to figure out how to get the mummy into this pit, light it on fire to take him out. So he's the last one left, so everyone else has been killed off. And he waits, and he has this kind of trap set up with the fire, and it's gonna kind of knock the mummy in. He hears a body hit, and he throws the torch down and sees that it was actually William's body, not the mummy. Oh shit! And the mummy pushes him from behind the burning pit, and there's the mummy walk back into the tomb, close it up, and go to sleep. So it's a straight up horror movie. The mummy kills off all the intruders, but you get, they at least hope at the end that he had pulled this off. You get kind of a little bit of a twist. Rob Zombie does the horror aspects well, and I think he can at least get a good tone for the movie, and show some bloody, gory deaths.
All right, Joe, what did you do with the mummy?
All right, so my director is David Fincher, because I had to use the nominees from the current Oscars. And so my two leads are treasure hunters, played by Carey Mulligan and Lakeith Stanfield. I also have explorers, played by Riz Ahmed and Daniel Kaluuya. I have some professors, played by Glenn Close, Vanessa Kirby, Sacha Baron Cohen, and then archaeologists, played by Stephen Yeun and Maria Bakalova. And so the plot of my movie is a group of archaeologists, professors, explorers, and even treasure hunters are brought in to explore the recently discovered tomb of a pharaoh. They all meet up at a bar outside of Cairo, where we get to meet all of the characters, including the bartender who talks about the pharaoh and the legend of a red and green pendant that is said to awaken the long-lost pharaoh. The next day, they're exploring the tomb, and we see them look at the paintings and inscriptions on the walls and analyze them. They look at the jewels and gold and talk about their history. They eventually make their way to the pharaoh's sarcophagus, and they all make it very clear not to touch it. However, when they all split up to explore the various parts of the tomb, one returns to the sarcophagus to find it open and empty. Freaked out, one of them decides to leave until they learn the tomb has been sealed shut. They immediately blame one of the treasure hunters. Everyone is pointing fingers until one of them sees the mummy attack a member of the group. When one of them finds the red and green pendant and another decodes an encryption on the wall that says that the tomb will only remain open while the mummy rests, they realize one of them must not be who they say they are, and it becomes a thrillerish whodunit to figure out who awoke the mummy before it kills them all. And that's kind of the main meat of my story, is kind of the whodunit aspect of it. At the end, it is revealed it was Glenn Close's character, who feels she is the reincarnation of the mummy's wife, and she just wants to be with her love again. Throughout the movie, she had been talking about being a widow and missing her husband, but as the viewer, you assume she was talking about her husband that died a few years ago, not a few thousand years ago, and that is my pitch.
Interesting. I like that we both had two Rob Zombie rules in a row, so it'll be interesting to compare those two together because you guys both went in different directions with it for sure.
Yeah.
I have one question for Bobby. Now that we mentioned the Rob Zombie rule usage, Rob Zombie, his soundtracks are always really interesting, and he makes a lot of bold music choices on his soundtracks. And I know you're a big music guy on our TikTok and everything else, so I want to know what you would be doing for the soundtrack on your Rob Zombie Mummy movie.
It's going to be very guitar driven, but not in the aspect that you would think of like an action, kind of like what he would do in like White Zombie, where it was very like thematic and very, it was very, yeah. But the guitar work and everything in that was very you could throw that into a movie and it would set the mood for a scene. So just kind of you would have his flashes of music when there's tension or things happening in there for sure.
All right, I like that.
It is interesting, as Tristan mentioned, we have the Rob Zombie movie again, but also both times has gone up against the Academy Award
That's right.
role.
Yeah.
So interesting to see that. But that does delve me into my question, which is about casting. Joe obviously has a good cast because he had to choose people that were nominated for Academy Awards. Bobby, Rob Zombie, I don't see a single person that you cast ever working with him. What made you go that direction? Like, it just sounds like you cast a movie and pitched a movie and then just we're like, I guess Rob Zombie's directing it. Now, nothing about your movie to me, like, same, I hit Joe on this, nothing about your movie feels like a Rob Zombie movie.
Well, say like Rob Zombie, if he's working for someone like Blumhouse for this type of movie, what they usually so they would give Rob Zombie like, oh, go make a mummy movie that's cheap, but we'll give you at least one good like lead actor, like known person, and that's going to be the Riz Ahmed, who is very known like Academy wise and stuff, and like he's like your kind of face. Jesse Plemons is rising, but he's very much a character actor. He only plays side character roles. He's never like a lead thing. So that's kind of he's in that place. I think he could do a Rob Zombie movie. I don't see any reason why he wouldn't. I also have Isa Gonzalez, who's not very. She's good in the movies that she's in, but she's not a big star. She's nowhere near it. I know her most from Baby Driver. It's kind of the most prominent role I know her in. William Fichtner is just he's again a character actor kind of guy. Like, I think I filled it pretty well. We have his, Sherry Moon Zombie in there. And Billy Magnuson, again, someone who's just a side actor. He's a side character actor right now. So I think there are people, like, even if they haven't worked with him before, these aren't big stars other than the one who you would want to lead a movie called The Mummy, basically. Okay.
All right. Yeah, with that being said, guys, fight it out.
I would just say, if I were to watch like the trailer for these movies, and like I would rather see a fun, we both have the similar plot of people being trapped in a tomb and being attacked by the mummy. It's very similar concept. I'd rather see the big, bloody, gory deaths of more of the fun movie than yours sounding a little bit more. What was that twist what was the twist at the end with the mummy being? What was that at the end being only a few?
No. The twist was basically it's revealed that it was Glenn Close is the one that like released the mummy, but like because throughout the movie she had been talking like she's a widow and blah blah blah, And so throughout it, like as she's saying, when she says she's a widow and stuff like that, you think she's referring to her husband that died like a few years ago. But then when you find out that she believes she's the reincarnated wife of the mummy, it's kind of revealed
Yeah,
like,
that's
oh,
again, you're bringing a lot more of like the mystical kind of elements into it that I think can be the downfall to these movies
but like
sometimes.
part of the reveal is
Um,
like you don't know, like is
and the
she a
gem and all
crazy
that stuff.
person? Like that's the thing of like you don't know, is she a crazy person or is she actually like the reincarnated wife of this mummy? That's part of it too, as it's never fully
Right.
like 100% explained.
Okay. I'm just saying, as far as preference, if I'm going to watch a mummy movie, I'd rather it be a little more simplistic rather than a magical gem, and then the possibility of the reincarnation and that. I'd rather see him more simplistic. Mummy opens, is awakened and starts killing people, and it's brutal and like fun brutality to me.
But to me,
That's
I'd rather
basically
see
it.
like the more fun, who done it kind of thing around it with the kills and with the deaths and all of that. I find that's more intriguing than just the straight up deaths and just the
Yeah.
kills. And I find that more compelling and more interesting. And so I feel like it just comes. Our movies basically
But I
come
don't
down to
know.
taste. Of would you rather see a Rob
Yeah.
Zombie violent movie or would you rather
Right,
see a
but
more?
I don't know why is it a big deal, like, of the who done it. Usually it's like, oh, they killed someone off, they did this thing. The who done it, like, who awakened it, but
Because who
why?
awoken it is the one that has to put, is the one who has to like undo it basically. And so they have to figure out who did it to basically get them to, put the mummy out. Otherwise,
Yeah.
they can't escape and they all die.
Yeah, it's more of just I don't love that as a stake, as like the stakes of the who done it and of the movie for the mummy. I'd rather focus on the mummy being this thing, and you have at least some background with some characters that have like the history to tell of these tombs and what they can expect, and then you get the booby traps, which is like the fun aspect of like a Home Alone, but they're bloody and gory, because they were set up back by the ancient Egyptians, and then you get the at least somewhat of a compelling like story with you are trying to follow this character and make sure he gets out. You get the twist at the end where your lead character dies and the mummy wins and goes back, and it sets up that he could be awakened as many times as people can go into this, and how are people going to get out of it, if you wanted to. But honestly, you could even just make it a standalone, like it's do whatever you want with it. But I'd rather a more simplistic mummy movie, is just taste wise.
Yeah, for me, I'm more intrigued by like the more people aspect of it
Tristan
with the mummy.
Tristan's
Yeah.
making the final decision, but I have my decision.
Yeah, I'm gonna say we're starting to repeat the same points here,
Yeah.
so I think we can just go to Johnny if you have any thoughts on this.
My main thoughts are this. While I'm not sold on Joe's movie plot-wise, Bobby in no way, shape, or form made a Rob Zombie movie. None of his cast would ever actually appear in his movie. I know he kind of gave a weak defense to that, but like, in no world is Billy Magnuson ever being in a Rob Zombie movie. That was an awful casting choice if you're actually going that direction. Same with Jesse Plemons. Rob Zombie works with Robert Forsythe and Sid Haig and Bill Moseley. Like, he has the same group of actors in all of his movies. If Bobby went that direction, and I believe that this is a movie that he actually could have made, I think he could have sold me more on his plot. But as soon as Bobby said his cast, he kind of lost, because I was like, there's no universe that Billy Magnuson is ever appearing in a Rob Zombie movie. That's just not realistic. And Bobby's movie, just, even if his plot was amazing, which is just okay, which so is Joe's, Bobby's casting completely takes me out of the running for it. I think both of them, the Rob Zombie rule was tough, but I think there was directions you could have went that could have sold it as, I used this rule well, and I don't think either of them did. And I think Bobby failed even more than Joe as far as making it a Rob Zombie movie. So I go towards Joe.
Yeah, I'm going the same direction. I think that Bobby was a little bit closer in my mind to, at least he went more to the horror, more to like the grit a little bit, but I still think he didn't quite go all the way. I got his rationalization, like, oh, it's kind of like something Blumhouse would do. I know they're right now doing those like straight to Amazon Prime, like randomly there'll be like one big star in their movie or something like that. So maybe, but I think ultimately, if you went, like Johnny said, in the direction of making it a really Rob Zombie oriented movie, the same way with Joe, I think if you guys leaned into it more, it would have been that. I would like to see Bobby's movie, but I'm going to give the point to Joe. I just don't think Bobby quite used the rule as well as he could have.
I think even if Bobby went like Tyler Mane, who was like Michael Myers in the Halloween movies and played like the big characters in some of his other movies, if he was like Tyler Mane is my mummy, and I'm going with people that actually worked with Rob Zombie outside of his wife being in it, none of it was very realistic casting. So
This makes me very excited for me to match up on the rules because I think this episode we've had a lot of really close rule choice and rule usage.
Yeah, and also you apparently gave Rob Zombie to two people that don't know Rob Zombie very well.
Yeah. No, neither of you do.
Yeah.
We apologize for that, but no, neither.
I had to try.
Yeah.
I at least
Or
made
even
the movie
looked at
was,
his IMDb.
Yeah, when I did my cast, I at least tried to find like
Joe's cast
lesser known
made sense
people
for a Rob Zombie movie, and then his plot didn't. Bobby's plot did, but his cast did not.
Yeah.
So I think if you two combined, maybe you two could have done a good Rob Zombie movie, but to get separate, you failed at it.
All right. So we're just going now for not getting a repeat.
Now Bobby needs to hope that Joe
John
doesn't get a
Carter
repeat rule.
Yeah, with that, my prediction is incorrect. Joe has now won another match this season, but we'll see if he gets his repeater rule or not. If he does, that means next time Bobby and Joe face, Joe gets to repeat one of the rules and remove one that's terrible. So if he doesn't like Rob Zombie, he can replace it with something that he actually knows anything about and make a movie that might be good.
All right. Well, I'll go first on this one just to finish this off here.
Yeah, I got a long.
Cool.
Pitch.
I'll quickly read this one. John Carter came out in 2012. Got a 52% Rotten Tomatoes. Joe loves it. Andrew Stanton directed it, which is interesting because he also did Wall-E and Finding Nemo, and he's mainly a Pixar director. And this was his as far as I know, his one big live action movie. I don't know if he's done anything smaller. I definitely don't think he did Twilight. This is it. When Civil War veteran John Carter, Taylor Hitch, mysteriously awakens on the surface of Mars, also called Barsoom, he a little expects the adventure that awaits him. Carter reluctantly becomes embroiled in an epic conflict among the Red Planet's inhabitants, including Tars Tarkas, played by Willem Dafoe, who appears in really random fucking franchises, and Princess Deja Thoris, played by Lynn Collins. Barsoom is poised on the brink of collapse. War-weary Carter rediscovers his humanity when he realizes that everyone's fate is in his hands. And who's going first?
I am.
All right, Bobby, you go first. I'm going to grab a drink and have fun. Good luck. Don't lose.
All right. So my director of my movie is going to be Sam Raimi, because I'm basically turning this into like a horror comedy with some action in there. It's the rule I got is that you must cross over with another franchise. I mean, we're kind of down to the last one, so I'll get into that as we go. My John Carter is going to be played by Nicholas Hoult. I have a character named Sola who is from the John Carter stuff, and she's a Thark played by Danal Garia. He's a Koye. I have a Mobile who's a Heliumite played by Jeff Goldblum. I have Apita, who's a Zedungan, played by Iko Uwais from The Raid. And then I have Gibbs, who is another alien, and it's going to be played by Bruce Campbell, because you have to have him in a Sam Raimi movie, and I think he could be fun. So we start with John Carter in a ship. We see flashbacks of his general backstory of being from Earth and transported to Mars, and his adventures fighting off creatures and the war between the Heliumites, Zedungans, the Therns, and the Tharks, which is now at a kind of agreed upon peace as of right now. His job is to now help protect the planet and keep peace. They were picking up strange readings from a planet just outside the solar system, and John was sent to investigate with Sola, a Thark and a friend of John, Mobile, a Heliumite and scientist, Apita, a Zedungan warrior, and Gibbs, a sarcastic Thern who begrudgingly went along, and a few others we didn't cast because they're not kind of like the main people, but we have our main group there. When he arrives on the planet, he finds it dark, devoid of life, other than eggs from an unknown creature. They explore the planet, finding strange acid-like fluid and remains remains of beings that seem to have been slaughtered. One of the scientists goes to take a sample from one of the eggs, and something bursts out and attaches to his face. A bigger alien then appears from the shadows, a xenomorph, something only thought to have existed in legends. Now we have an action horror comedy. Comedy being with more of the character interactions that Sam Raimi does very well, with them trying to destroy what they could of the xenomorphs and escape back to Mars. We have bloody kills, fun action, kind of throwback kind of style for Sam Raimi, including Iko Uwais doing his kind of fighting type of stuff with any of the aliens that he could, because he's also an alien that can kind of fight it off. We have Bruce Campbell being his entertaining self, and the friendship between John Carter and Sola being more of the kind of two main leads of the movie. At the end, there are only two left, John and Sola. They barely make it off the planet and back to Mars. Just as it seems everything is wrapping up, Sola suddenly starts to feel sick, and an alien bursts through her chest. So now we have a xenomorph that is on Mars.
All right. I like it. I like the franchise crossover. Joe, what do you got for us? I know yours is a 4-hour epic, so I bet yours is a long, a pretty long plot.
Yeah, like Johnny said, mine's a 4-hour epic. My director is James Mangold, because kind of the vibe I want to go for this is like a Western kind of.
And we love
tone.
using him.
Tone.
We do love using it.
But I feel like, but the tone I want to go for is more of like a Western epic type thing, and I feel like James Mangold can do that. My John Carter is going to be played by Jason Momoa, because I feel like he has the type of charisma to carry a movie for 4 hours and make it entertaining. My Princess Deja is going to be played by Lupita Nyong'o. Her father, the King of Helium, is going to be played by Denzel Washington. And then the Mars alien Tars Tarkas is going to be voiced by Christian Bale. So the movie opens with John fighting in the Civil War on the side of the Confederates. After the war and ashamed of his beliefs, he flees to Arizona, where he finds a vein of gold. While mining, the Apaches find him and chase him, and he runs and hides himself in a mysterious cave. While wandering through the cave, he gets lost until he finds light at the end of the tunnel, only to emerge on Mars, which the inhabitants call Barsoom. Not long after emerging from the cave, he is chased by Tharks, a green six-limbed species of Barsoom. Because of the lower gravity, he quickly realizes he has incredible strength, speed, and agility, which impresses the Tharks. He slowly becomes friends with Tars Tarkas, one of the chiefs of the Tharks, and since the Tharks value strength and military prowess above all else, he quickly rises in their ranks. John learns about the Red Martians, a group of people with brick-colored skin who closely resemble humans. The Red Martians live above the Tharks in a widely spaced grid of city-states and rule over the Tharks. The Tharks have planned to kidnap Deja Thoris, the Red Martian Princess of Helium, in an attempt to start negotiations and liberate themselves. John falls in love with the captured princess, who understands the plight of the Tharks, and John decides to free Deja from the Tharks to return her safely to her people. He is rewarded and lauded by the Red Martians. The King of Helium allows John one wish, and he looks at Deja and then looks back at the Tharks down below on the surface of Barsoom, and he orders Helium to stop enslaving the Tharks, and the king reluctantly grants his wish. From then on, we see John, Deja, and some Tharks on various adventures. Over time, the people of Helium and the Tharks work closer together and slowly become allies. When the people of Helium's rival city-state Zodanga threaten war, the Red Martians of Helium, led by Princess Deja, and the Tharks, led by John, team up in an epic battle to fight Zodanga. After Zodanga's defeat, John is made a prince, and he marries Princess Deja. Not long after the war, the atmosphere plant that keeps the air on Barsoom breathable starts to fail after being sabotaged by a few living Zodangans. John starts to head towards the plant, but Deja tells him the air is unbreathable inside the plant, and John says he still has to try. He goes in and fixes the jammed gears, but dies of asphyxiation. He awakens in the dark and wanders until he sees light and emerges outside of the cave back on Earth. And that's my pitch. I basically kind of took the plot of the original novel and kind of streamlined it, but also did it in a way I think fit a 4-hour epic. And that's kind of everything.
All right. I like both pitches. Tristan, you got any questions?
I like them both. We're running long on time, so I just want to hear him argue it out.
Yeah, same. We'll do a quick argument, and then we'll do our final decisions.
So no questions?
No questions. Joe, you
Get
start.
away with it this time, Joe.
So my main thing against Bobby is you basically took John Carter, which is kind of like a more serious, pulpy thing, and then you took Alien, which is more of like a serious horror thing, and I just feel like combining them in like a horror comedy style thing, I don't know if that like meshes, and I feel like Alien fans aren't exactly going to want to see like Alien inside of a comedy, and I feel like not that there really are John Carter fans, but I don't know if that necessarily fits comedy, and I also don't know with Sam Raimi. I know he's up next to direct Doctor Strange 2, but Marvel doesn't exactly let their directors have a whole lot of control. I don't really know like how much gas he really has left in the tank as far as like an original movie that he has most control over. So I just feel like it's very easy for his movie to fall apart.
I would say as far as the tone, like you said, you don't know if John Carter fans exist. I mean, it's a very outdated franchise. It's the type of movie that would have inspired like a Star Wars and the stuff like then. So as far as like the tone of that side, I don't think that is that much of an issue. And as far as the aliens, as long as the aliens themselves, the xenomorphs, are not funny, and they're the Sam Raimi creepy, and they are the ones that are like you stick to their tone, and they do that well, and they create the atmosphere and the villains of the movie, and then you have basically a fun group of people that are kind of at odds with each other because like they did come from this background of they were at war and are forced to be together, and now each of them has to be a representative on these missions, so you have the kind of bickering that can go on between them, which is more the more like the comedy style. And as far as Sam Raimi, one, he is hot right now, and his name is coming back. I just saw a lot of videos and YouTube things talking about it, where studios are looking to bring him in to work with, like right now, especially after kind of seeing his work on Doctor Strange 2. I think bringing him back to his roots of what he did well with with Bruce Campbell and Ash and that character, and that's that kind of the tone of the horror comedy, and then giving him something to do that would be a very cool to do a lot of practical effects to get a lot of like certain xenomorph shots and stuff that he's very good at. I think would go really well. And working with Marvel, I mean, we'll see how Doctor Strange 2 is, but I think that could bring him back to wanting to do something on this scale. To me, I think it works well. I'm a Sam Raimi fan, and I think that the tone does work, especially because there are no real John Carter fans.
No, I just meant more. John Carter's like a very I don't want to say serious, but it is I look at it and I don't think comedy, and that was my thing. I just don't know if comedy fits with that. But it just comes down to, do you have faith in Sam Raimi? And personally, right now, I don't until he proves me wrong. But and my other thing was, do you like really touch on John Carter's like backstory at all in your movie, or?
That's in the beginning. It established like on the ship where you're kind of meeting all the characters. I said you kind of flash back to his origins of how they got to this point, and that they are at a kind of a temporary peace that he brought that with to them, and that was his job to.
But do you
and now they're
explain like
kind of
that he's
protecting Mars.
a human or anything at all? Because I mean that's a pretty big
Yeah,
aspect.
yeah,
of it,
like
so.
yeah. So you can do that. You can do that relatively quickly. I mean, it's not going to be a long drawn out thing, but all you have to do is show him on Earth, show a brief thing of how he got to Mars, and then that he led that, and that's pretty quick. And just to establish this is John Carter, is kind of who he is. Now you have this group that are kind of at odds with each other, but kind of they have to work together. With yours, it's just more of it's 4 hours, and it's this long drawn out big fantasy epic, but it is gonna be very niche of who will like that. It will be more of like the Snyder cut, where people are gonna be all in and all for it for all 4 hours, or they're gonna drop out, and one by the runtime, two by the like to do a 4 hours of all this stuff to hold people's interest. And I don't think like John Carter taken super seriously with more seriously, I don't think is the right take. Pulpy can be a little bit more fun. And I think I'd rather see a little bit more fun in it to entertain me for the 4 hours.
I mean,
Um,
James Mangold can do fun. I just meant it's more of like that Western kind of vibe is what I wanted to do. I mean, there were moments in like Ford versus Ferrari that were funny. There's moments in Logan that can be fun. Like I'm not saying it's like this boring, serious 4 hour long like 10 Commandments style movie. There it is.
no,
That is partially why I wanted like someone like Jason Momoa who has that charisma. I wanted like kind of these big charismatic actors to help carry you through the movie and make you entertained throughout it, with like Denzel Washington and Lupita Nyong'o and Christian Bale. I wanted these, actors that had the charisma to help carry a 4 hour movie, because 4 hours is a long ass time for a movie. So
Yeah. Do you explain at all like how he ends up back on Earth, or does he just walk? He died and then he
He
walked
died
and he's
basically
out on
because
Earth.
that's basically what the book was. So I just stuck with that because I didn't want to. Because that was
Yeah.
basically like if you
I think
basically
after a 4 hour long movie, I'd want something a little bit more clear on the ending, as far as like a definitive this is thing rather than ambiguous. I think ambiguous after a 4 hour movie is like, why did I watch all that? What happened there? Like leading then I'd rather lead it to something that's either tragic or lead it to something that's a happy ending, rather than wait, how did that happen,
yeah.
and confuse people at the end a little bit more.
Yeah, but I mean, it's basically the same way he got to Mars. It's just in reverse.
All right, I think we have our decision on this. Tristan, what do you got?
Yeah, I'm not the one making the final call, but I do think both of these are alright pitches. I don't think either one is super great. Maybe it's because I'm not a John Carter fan necessarily, but I mean I'm familiar with enough with it that I feel like I'd be into a good version of this. And neither one of these particularly stood out for me. I think Bobby's has a good idea with the crossover, but I think his tone is a bit off, and I think Joe knocked him on that pretty good. That the alien tone mixing with the Sam Raimi kind of zany ridiculousness doesn't really fit. For me, I think you could have crossed over with some slightly more tongue-in-cheek horror franchises and gotten it a little bit better out of that. Uh, Joe's, on the other hand, just feels. I know the rule is 4 hours, but I think that's one where you're gonna feel the 4 hours. You're not gonna be there enamored. You're gonna be like feeling the drag of these 4 hours for this really long sci-fi epic. So I think I'm gonna lean towards Bobby on this, but I am pretty close on it. But either way, it's just because neither one of them really blew me away. But I think Bobby's just seems a little bit more like something I would love as an Alien fan and a Sam Raimi fan, even if I don't think they necessarily go together great.
Yeah, I went back and forth on this because I think Joe did a good job selling me on like a 4 hour epic of John Carter, which normally I maybe wouldn't see. I think his would have been stronger with. I know we've used James Mangold a lot, but I think another director we've used a lot that would have been perfect for his pitch was Denis Villeneuve. I think if he went more that direction, I think that would have sold me more on like a long sci-fi type of movie. I'm a huge fan of Blade Runner 2049. I know that's not 4 hours, but I know it's a longer sci-fi epic, and I think Joe could have really sold that well with a Villeneuve type film, rather than like a Mangold, who we've talked about before, makes great dad movies, and I don't know necessarily if Mangold sells a movie if it's 4 hours. Bobby, I think, could have used different crossovers. That if he's doing Sam Raimi and crossing over with another franchise, do Critters or do uh, shit. What's it called? I just blanked on it. The Kevin Bacon movie where they're underground.
Tremors.
The worms. Tremors. Like,
Tremors.
Star
I
Wars.
think John Carter, Sam Raimi, Tremors on Mars would have been amazing, directed by Sam Raimi. I think there are some more fun franchises that you could have gone to. But I do think overall Bobby takes this one because I think his sounds more of the movie I would go see. Joe was close, but I think his director choice actually hurt him, even though I love James Mangold. I don't know necessarily if he's the right choice for a 4 hour epic. And with Jason Momoa as the lead, I'm not sold on that. I think he'd be a great side character, but I don't think he'd be a great lead in this one as Momoa. So
Once again, if Joe
go
picks
with
Zack
Bobby.
Snyder, he would have gotten me. You give me a
There you
4 hour
go.
Zack Snyder with Jason
Yeah.
Momoa as John Carter. Like, thank you. Give me more of that.
I do think, even though I don't like Zack Snyder, if you guys, either of you had picked him for your 4 hour epic, you could have sold me on why he would make it, rather than like, I don't believe that James Mangold would make a 4 hour John Carter movie. But if you were like, well, you could have sold me on a 2 hour Zack Snyder movie is garbage, but if he takes 4 hours to expand every single idea in his head, I think you could have sold me on that actually being a movie that would have been made. So I do think that actually could have won me over if either of you had gone with him. So that being said, we'll just go a quick round of. It has been a long quarantine, a very long year, over a year now since businesses started shut down. So I'll give my quick recommendation for something I've watched over quarantine that I highly recommend. And while I stick with Willy's Wonderworld, which all of you should watch, which is a new movie that Nicolas Cage is in, I would go with the new Amazon Prime show, Invincible, which was a comic book created by Robert Kirkman. It's fantastic. I'm currently, that's my new weekly show that I'm obsessed with. So I recommend Invincible on Amazon Prime. Tristan, do you have anything to recommend before we end?
Yeah, after watching the Snyder Cut, I've just been super invested into DC. So I've been on HBO Max binge watching Superman or Batman the animated series. It's all on there. They have the entire DC animated universe. So I'm gonna go on there and watch some Superman. I'm gonna watch some Justice League. I've been binge reading a bunch of Batman comic books. I've been trying to get through the quarantine. Like Johnny said, it's been a long quarantine, so I'm trying to get out of my movie comfort zone a bit and explore some other mediums. So yeah, I've been either binge watching Batman or reading Batman. What about you, Joe?
Yeah, basically, if you're gonna watch anything, watch this podcast. That's my recommendation. Just go back, watch all of our old episodes. But I will say, watch The Falcon and Winter Soldier. I'm really liking this. I went in to it expecting to like it, but I'm liking it a lot more than I even expected to. So I'll say if you're a Marvel fan and you haven't checked it out, go check that out. But yeah, that's really my only recommendation. Oh yeah, follow us on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, all that.
And check out our reviews of Falcon and the Winter Soldier after you watch the episodes.
All right. And I guess I would say just because I would recommend anyone go watch because we do this yearly, the live action and animated shorts that were nominated for best shorts by the Oscars. I think there's some pretty good ones this year. They're always at least entertaining and interesting. I would recommend watching, if you want something fun, watch Burrow, the animated one. That's kind of just a fun, cute one if you wanted a little distraction. And then my favorite of the live action was, I think it was White Eye. It was the one about the bike. White Eye, which is that one's entertaining as well from the live action side. But yeah, I'd recommend checking those out every year. They're it's not too long of a time investment, and you can get some interesting stories.
Yeah, if anyone, I think this should work for anyone outside of the Detroit area. Bobby and I downloaded it through the same thing, but if you look up the Detroit Institute of Arts and you find the short film festival, you can find a link to pay. You pay $30 and you get a month of all of the animated shorts, all of the live action shorts, and all of the documentary shorts that were nominated this year for Oscars. And it's a great deal. It's a great price. I still have I watched all the live action and the short films as well as Bobby did, and I've watched one of the documentaries, and I got 4 more to go. But if you're an Oscar completionist like I want to be this year, and I try to be every year, that's a super easy way to download those and watch them. So I recommend that. But go to Detroit Institute of Arts, and you can find an easy download. Just enter your email address, and you can do it through some different websites. So that's what I would also say. Yeah, that's a great recommendation. So that being said, this was a fun episode. I'm excited to face Tristan next week. We both got to start working on our pitches, but it should be a fun fight. So thank you.
I'm also looking forward to our Mount Rushmore episode after that too, coming up the week after.
Yeah, I got to stop focusing on that and focus on our pitches. But everyone, thank you for watching Movie Changeup. This has been a fun episode, and I know it's been a little longer, but we've been gone for a week, so we gave you a little extra content this week. So thank you.
4-hour epic.
Exactly, 4-hour epic. We almost got to it, but maybe one day we'll see. We'll call our buddy Zack Snyder. So have a great night, everyone. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I just want to say for one final thing, we have a live Twitch comment from Spinner58, who happens to be my mom, that says, "I like Jason Momoa, especially when he takes his shirt off." So I'll leave you with that.